to the first meeting of the House of Commons Special Committee on COVID-19 pandemic. Bienvenue à la
Welcome to the first meeting of the House of Commons Special Committee on the COVID-19 pandemic.
Pursuant to order of reference of Monday, April 20th, the committee is meeting for the purpose of considering ministerial announcements, allowing members to present petitions, and questioning ministers of the Crown, including the Prime Minister, in respect to COVID-19 pandemic. La réunion aujourd'hui.
Today's meeting is taking place by video conference, and the proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. The interpreter would like to note that the sound has been cut. So, as you are aware, the webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entirety of the community.
House, like in the House or in committee, they should not take photos of their colleagues or film the proceedings today. Before we begin, I would like to make a brief statement. In 1972, a radio station challenged its listeners to a contest. Complete the sentence. As Canadian as. The winning entry submitted by a 17-year-old Heather Scott was as Canadian as possible under the circumstances. This strikes me as an excellent description of how we, as people, have been adapting and coping with many of the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic here in Canada.
Here at the House of Commons, the members of Parliament, their staff, and the employees of the House Administration, of the Library of Parliament, and of the Parliamentary Protection Service show every day that our parliamentary democracy continues to operate.
The House of Commons prides itself on its ability to marry tradition and innovation. It is both careful steward of parliamentary history and precedent and a forward-looking institution. This week, thanks to the remarkable work of the people I mentioned earlier, members are coming together to carry out our parliamentary responsibilities. We will be meeting both virtually, as we are today, and in person in the chamber. While we are mindful of the procedures and practices that govern the proceedings of the House of Commons and its committees, the meeting of the Special Committee of the COVID-19 pandemic marks a new chapter in our progression. There may be technological challenges as we learn to navigate this less familiar work environment, but I'm confident that as it has been, our proceedings will be as Canadian as possible under the circumstances.
With that in mind, and in order to facilitate the work of our interpreters and ensure an orderly meeting, I would like to outline a few rules to follow.
In the video conference will work very much like in regular committee meetings, and in the House, you have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, which is off, English or French. L'interprétation de la
Interpretation in this video conference will work very much like in regular committee meetings and in the House. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, off, English, or French.
Speaking, please wait until I recognize your name. When you are ready to speak, you can either click on the microphone icon to activate your mic, or you can hold down the space bar while you're speaking. Some of you may remember what walkie-talkies are. Some of us older folks on this today, that's how it's working. So that if you keep the bar down, it's recording it's taking what you're saying. So the minute you let go, it comes off. I would like to remind honorable members that if you want to speak in English, you should be on the English channel. Si vous décidez parler.
If you want to speak in French, you should be on the French channel. And should you wish to alternate between the two languages, you should choose the floor channel off. Please try to transition slowly between languages.
Should you wish to alternate between the two languages, you should be on the floor channel. Please try to transition slowly between the languages. Please direct your remarks through the chair. S'il vous plaît.
Please direct your remarks through the chair.
Should members need to request the floor outside their designated speaking times, they should activate their mic and state that they have a point of order. Si un membre...
Should members need to intervene on a point of order that has been raised by another member, they should use the raise hand function. This will signal to the chair your interest to speak. In order to do so, you should click on Participants at the bottom of the screen. When the list pops up, you will see next to your name that you can click Raise Hand.
Slowly and clearly at all times. S'il vous plaît,
Please speak slowly and clearly at all times.
not speaking, leave your mic on mute. Lorsque vous ne parlez pas,
When you are not speaking, please leave your mic on mute.
a headset is strongly recommended. L'utilisation
The use of a headset is strongly recommended. If you do not have one, please ask someone here in Ottawa, and we will be able to provide you with one.
have a headset, please contact someone in IT here in Ottawa, and we'll make sure that you do receive one. Should any technical challenges arise, for example, in relation to interpretation, please advise the chair immediately by raising a point of order, and the technical team will work to resolve them. Please note that we may need to suspend during these times. Si jamais
If you get accidentally disconnected, please try to rejoin the meeting with the information you used to join initially. If you are unable to rejoin, please contact our technical support team.
started, please note that in the top right-hand corner of your screen is a button. You can use that to change views. Speaker view allows you to focus on the person currently speaking. Gallery view allows you to see a larger number of participants. So you can click through the multiple pages in the gallery to view and see more participants. Before we begin, today is April 28th, and we mark the National Day of Mourning for workers killed or injured in the workplace. It is a day in which we pause to remember those who lost their lives in their workplace, and for those who were left to mourn their loss. C'est également un jour.
It is also a day where we recognize the importance of health and safety at work, hoping that one day we will no longer have to grieve workers who die in our country.
A moment of silence in remembrance of them. Nous allons maintenant.
We will now proceed to ministerial announcements. A Minister of the Crown may make a short statement. A member for each of the recognized parties, as well as a member of the Green Party, may then comment briefly in response.
Minister of Health. The Honourable Minister of Health, Ms. Hajdu, please unclick your mute.
Oh, got it. Sorry. After that somewhat uneloquent beginning, thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak at this historic first sitting of virtual Parliament. It is always an honor to occupy a seat in this House, and it is a special honor to represent the residents of Thunder Bay Superior North on this historic day in our country. Of course, this new way of pursuing our democratic process of governing Canada is precipitated by the crisis of a global pandemic of the likes our world has not seen in over 100 years. And despite the work Canada has done to prepare for outbreaks and epidemics, the scope of COVID-19 has left no country untouched. Sadly, this epidemic has claimed thousands of lives worldwide, and Canada has not been immune. My heart goes out to all of the loved ones of the lives we have lost here in our country and around the world. To date, in Canada, we have managed to protect our healthcare systems and avoid the kinds of surges that have led to even greater loss of life in other countries. There are many factors that have contributed to our current, and I would say cautious, progress on limiting spread here in Canada. We have a public health care system that's accessible to all Canadians. We have strong local public health units, and we have a culture of innovation and courage that has led to many Canadians and Canadian companies stepping up to fill gaps as they see them. For more than a month, public health officials across the country have been asking Canadians to stay home and stay safe. And we're starting to see encouraging signs that our collective work and courage is indeed flattening the curve. Canadians are taking responsibility for their health and for the health of others by practicing physical and social distancing, by frequent hand washing, and isolating themselves if they are sick or they have traveled. I know I join all Canadians in offering a heartfelt thank you to all frontline healthcare workers, nurses and doctors, personal support workers, lab workers, cleaning personnel, and support staff of all varieties. Our healthcare workers are front and center in this pandemic. They are taking care of patients affected by COVID-19. They are taking care of senior citizens and other populations at a high risk of contracting COVID-19. It is hard and emotional work. There is a burden of trauma in the work of such intensity, suffering, and loneliness. And I speak for all of us when I say that we owe you a huge debt of gratitude. And together, all workers, all employers, and all Canadians who are just adjusting to this new and difficult way of adapting are slowing the spread of COVID-19 in Canada. We are protecting our healthcare systems, and we are undoubtedly saving lives together. As I said, we are seeing hopeful evidence that Canada's COVID-19 epidemic is slowing down. For example, in late March, we saw case numbers doubling every 3 days. More recently, the doubling time of cases has slowed to more than 16 days. At the same time, however, we continue to see a rise in cases driven largely by outbreaks in long-term care and seniors' homes where older, medically vulnerable adults live. In fact, outbreaks in these institutions are responsible for more than 3/4 of all the deaths in Canada. This is indeed a tragedy. And it's one of the reasons we cannot let go, or we could lose the progress that we have made. We remain in a critical period, and we must stay focused and vigilant if we are to succeed in containing the spread of COVID-19. Our current public health measures remain essential to controlling Canada's COVID-19 epidemic. The Government of Canada will continue to work with provincial, territorial, and international partners to base our response to the epidemic on the latest science. We analyze data and clinical and epidemiological studies to determine where public health measures are working and where we may need or want to adjust our approaches. We are also collaborating with provincial and territorial governments and universities to forecast the possible future spread of COVID-19 in Canada. And this will help us to continue to estimate a range of possible numbers of cases, hospitalizations, and deaths that may occur in the coming weeks and months. Critical information to continue to protect our healthcare systems and to protect lives in Canada. Today, Dr. Theresa Tam, Canada's Chief Public Health Officer, is presenting an update to our national modeling. Now, as you know, models cannot predict what will happen, but they can help us understand what might happen. And that can help us plan and take actions to achieve the best possible outcome. They also help us identify what combinations of public health measures are more likely to reinforce epidemic control. Mr. Speaker, I know these are very difficult times for all Canadians. Over the past several weeks, I've been struck not only by Canadians' resilience, but also the great acts of kindness that we are seeing across the country. I think of business owners who are loaning RVs to frontline workers and hotels that are opening their doors for free to healthcare professionals so that they can get rest without risking infection to their families. I think of restaurant owners who are distributing meals to the elderly and to healthcare workers on the front line. So many stories, so many acts of kindness. Canadians are finding many different ways all across the country to support each other virtually and practically. My heart goes out to the people of Nova Scotia many of whom came together virtually in a vigil to support one another last Friday in memory of the victims of the recent shootings. Now, Mr. Speaker, the question on everyone's mind is, how long will this last? Public health officials and experts project that the current wave of the epidemic here in Canada could last until the summer, followed by outbreaks that we will need to rapidly control over time. However, there is still so much that we don't know about the virus. What I do know for certain is that the duration and severity of COVID-19 here in Canada depends on all of us, on our individual actions, and how we rigorously follow public health directives. Containing the spread of the virus and keeping the number of deaths as low as possible will take continued, collective, and determined effort. As Dr. Tam said yesterday, the effort of getting through this will be like a marathon. We have to plan carefully and we have to pace ourselves. The decisions that we make now will determine critical outcomes across the country in the weeks and months to come. Mr. Speaker, let me conclude by thanking all parliamentarians for their work and ongoing support during this time. I also thank all of the hardworking staff and experts who have allowed us to convene in this new and unique way. I'm confident that we will emerge from the pandemic stronger and more united as a country. Thank you very much.
For organizing the first virtual session here today. It's a historic day, and I wish you and your team much luck because, quite honestly, I think you'll need it. I also want to thank the Minister of Health for her department's work on COVID-19 over the past number of weeks and for taking the time today to address some of the concerns and questions many of us are hearing across the country. I also want to take the time to thank the Public Health Agency of Canada for the direction and information provided to Canadians. I have no doubt that Dr. Theresa Tam and her team have been working tirelessly over the past number of weeks on the latest research into the virus in order to provide Canadians with daily, up-to-date information. I know I'm not alone at extending my gratitude to the many officials working within the Public Health Agency of Canada. Quite simply, thank you. Also, Canada's frontline workers have been working long hours and made immense personal sacrifices to help Canadians cope with COVID-19. Our doctors, nurses, respiratory therapists, personal support workers, and other hospital staff are showing true leadership and courage. Firefighters, law enforcement, and other critical first responders continue to make sure that Canadians remain safe and secure through this crisis, as we've recently witnessed during the horrific tragedy in Nova Scotia. Cashiers and fast food workers have also continued to go to work every day to ensure people can stock their pantries and feed our families. Our Conservative caucus has nothing but respect and gratitude for every single one of you. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, our country has changed dramatically over the past 3 months. Our schools, workplaces, and local businesses have all shut down to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and do our part to flatten the curve. While Canada has seen close to 50,000 cases and nearly 3,000 deaths, we know that our situation could have been much worse had Canadians not made the personal sacrifices necessary to stay at home. Although people are starting to get restless to resume our normal lives, I would urge everyone to heed the advice of our public health officials. This virus has devastated our country. Thousands of Canadians are mourning the deaths of loved ones as a result of COVID-19. Many businesses will unfortunately be unable to reopen, leaving a huge hole in many communities. Many Canadian employees will not have jobs to return to when our country does reopen. The depth of this crisis cannot be understated. We are months, if not years away from seeing our country begin to rebound to the levels we were at just a few weeks ago. Mr. Speaker, with Canadians facing so much stress and anxiety over what may be an uncertain future, I also want to highlight the critical importance of mental health. Half of Canadians are reporting increased feelings of anxiety and stress. Many are feeling financially insecure and also increasingly worried about the uncertainties around how long this virus will continue to alter our lives. Last week, I wrote to Canada's top mental health agencies to ask the federal government could ensure these agencies have the supports to continuing delivering mental health services for Canadians. I'll be sharing my findings with the Minister of Health and our provincial colleagues so the government can prioritize these services for all Canadians. The increased demand for mental health services and the anxiety and stress that Canadians feel will continue long after the worst of COVID-19 has passed. I'm amazed at the resiliency of Canadians and our willingness to help others. My office has received countless offers from business owners ready to reconfigure their factories to make hand sanitizers, testing equipment, PPE, and other medical supplies for frontline workers. I've also heard from people in my community wanting to donate medical supplies. Some are making masks, other protective equipment to donate to local hospitals and care facilities. Others are donating to the food bank and local charities to ensure supports are there for all Canadians who need it. It's incredible to see communities across our great country come together in times of great hardship. However, this virus raises some serious concerns about our healthcare system, and Canadians are expecting us to work together to address these inadequacies. Our long-term care homes are floundering as a result of COVID-19. Staff have walked off the job because they are scared and don't have the personal protective equipment that they need. Families are not getting the communication they expect, and many are in the dark about their loved ones are faring in the midst of some of the worst viral hotspots in the country. With so many immunocompromised residents in these homes, the virus is spreading much more rapidly, and a large number of lives, which might have been saved with better precautions, have been lost as a result. Canada's seniors deserve much better treatment. Hearing about residents who are left alone for hours because staff are overwhelmed fails to uphold the safety and dignity in our long-term care homes, to say the least. We must do better for these residents. We need to do better for our seniors. Canadians have also have serious questions about the lack of preparedness. Our PPE stockpiles were not adequate, and some healthcare workers are saying they're forced to ration PPE at work. As well, many Canadians have questions about the slow reaction times to implement measures after first hearing about the virus. As well, the government needs to implement rigorous testing and tracing and rapidly approve new tests. Canadians are asking for these tests. We waited a very long time to receive data and modeling, which was only released after significant pressure. The government needs to share information it has with Canadians because we all want our economy to reboot as rapidly as possible. These are good and fair questions that deserve fulsome answers, Mr. Speaker, and I look forward to working with the government and other opposition parties to conduct a full review of Canada's response to COVID-19. Conducting this review and learning from missteps will help us better prepared for the next potential pandemic. This should not come as a surprise to anyone. We were warned after our response to SARS in 2003. Canada was the hardest hit country outside of Asia, and at that time, there was no public health agency and no chief public health officer. We will, in time, learn similar lessons from COVID-19, and our country will be stronger for it. But for now, we're all focused on the immediate future. When will we be able to see our loved ones again? Will our children finish the school year? When will we return to work? When will public parks open? When will life return to normal? When? How much longer? How much longer? We're all wondering these things, Mr. Speaker. The first priority to be the health of Canadians, and I, along with my Conservative colleagues, encourage everyone to follow the advice of the Public Health Agency of Canada and our respective provincial health authorities. Being impatient and breaking the current measures too early could result in a second wave of COVID-19, undoing all the hard work Canadians have managed over the past few weeks. There's no doubt COVID-19 is a defining moment in all of our lives. We will all remember the time when the world came to a halt and seemingly shut down. The vacant images of Canada's greatest landmarks, the time when we were unable to run the simplest of errands, and the time we had to visit our families through screen doors and windows. But over the past few weeks, we have seen Canadians come together in an unprecedented way. We will prevail, we need to prevail, and together we can prevail, Mr. Speaker. This is our moment to show the rest of the world what Canadians can do when we are together. Mr. Speaker, we will not let them down. Thank you.
The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly, Mr. Blanchet.
Nous y sommes.
Here we are. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and please allow me to greet you all. I think this will be a very interesting exercise. There are many people who are curious about this new exercise. It's new for all of us. And I think it's innovative too. Now, questions have been asked about technical problems, technical issues. And I can see already that this is going to be a success on my screen. I can see that there are about 297 participants, and that is evidence that this is working. And I applaud you for implementing this. Now, it's not the same thing as being in Parliament and seeing everyone face to face, and it doesn't replace in the long term a true Parliament and the kinds of exchanges we have in that framework. It will supplement our sittings, and it will be useful as such. Our duty is to be able to communicate content and debate this content. So what will we be talking about? How will we use this tool in order...
Mr. Speaker, I'm not hearing any sound.
Nous avons un appel.
So there is a point of order. Mr. Blanchet, continue, please.
Donc, allons-y.
So, as I was saying, I've had exchanges with the Prime Minister on the funding that will be backing some of the measures that have been brought forward. And I'm going to continue raising these issues that will, in particular, affect seniors. I'm sorry, something is ringing. Just 1 minute, please.
Réveil.
It's not an alarm clock anyway. Now, there were measures that were going to be receiving funding. And I raised the issue of tax avoidance that has cost the Canadian government millions of dollars. It's an enormous amount of money that legally but immorally is slipping through the fingers of the government. And there are many countries that have put in place programs for businesses. However, they are not giving that funding to businesses that are engaging in tax avoidance. And so I'd like to speak about this. There are many things that can be done. Now, do we have the means to allow this money to slip through its fingers? We have to go through an exercise here to provide funding, but we have to make sure it's not always the same who benefit. So I'd like to come back to the issue of seniors. I invited the Prime Minister to collaborate with us, as well as to the Deputy Prime Minister, and I repeat that invitation. In terms of wage subsidies, I believe that collaboration has worked. Funding for students as well. And for social measures, collaboration has worked. So collaboration between parties and the government has led to better results, rather than one entity making all the decisions. So I'd like to come back to the issue of seniors. Seniors make up 19% of the population in Quebec. And they are by far the most vulnerable people during this crisis. They are the most vulnerable economically as well, and they are isolated. Not only geographically, but they're also isolated socially. Where there are many seniors in residences, there has been a lockdown. They are isolated. And they are also isolated from technology because they are less familiar with technology that allows them to communicate.
For many people, filling out a form for the CERB is very technical, complicated. So I'd like to reiterate my call for cooperation. Many people received assistance that we would deem necessary, and we very openly cooperated on that assistance. So those who benefit from the CERB will access $2,000. Those who benefit from the CERB, who are students, will probably receive $1,500 a month. And those who receive old age security receive $630 a month. People will say they don't have the same traveling involved. And so for seniors to only receive 1/3 of the CERB, I think that it seems that the government admits that this amount cannot be considered adequate. Their groceries cost more. They have many services that they cannot access. Efforts have to be made for seniors, and I want the Bloc to really insist on this. I've lost how much time I have left, but I'd like to move forward on the measures that are being established for students. We're going to vote tomorrow on legislation to establish something that Bloc has wished, as well as the NDP as well. And it's out of the question that young people across Quebec and Canada, they won't have a job, they won't be able to work in festivals, in tourism, in restaurants, that they have nothing to live on. They'll have nothing to live off of during their school year. So we have to prepare something for them. It wouldn't be a surprise that the Bloc Québécois would wish that in this legislation there would be a disposition stating that Quebec could also withdraw from this with full compensation. Since this measure is reserved for students, this is the education sector, and of the many members who are here, there are none of them that are ministers of education. Why? Because it's not federal jurisdiction. But I'll admit, perhaps for administrative reasons, Quebec has raised concerns. The chambers of commerce have raised concerns, as have farmers and municipalities. They fear that some people fear that this will not incentivize people to work, but that doesn't encourage people to work either. The Bloc would thus propose that we have a measure that could be added to the initial motion, and it would ensure that there be a strong incentive. Like in other fields, the first $1,000 that a student earns would not take away from their CERB benefit. We do this for EI. For every dollar they earn, there's 50 cents that is removed and 50 cents that is kept in terms of their benefit. So we think in this context that Quebec fears would be allayed, and this would allow employers rather, to have access to labor, and chambers of commerce, their fears would also be allayed because they represent many SMEs. And this would also represent another advantage. We're all concerned with respect to public finances, and we'll have to foot the bill at a certain point. And this measure may allow the state to save tens of millions of dollars. These additional measures could also apply to the CERB, the regular CERB that already exists. That would be an employment incentive, and to a lesser extent, it also could be a fiscal incentive. So we would ask the government to consider this measure, because it would be good probably for all jurisdictions in Quebec and Canada. There are other points, but I imagine I have little time left. We'll have to come back to these topics later. Research, culture, fisheries, trade. These are all topics that merit our attention. Sometimes there are certain arrangements that can be made because there are limits to the debt loads that Canadians and Quebecers can take on. So I think in the long term, we will have to stop committing to spending that will not have a direct impact on our economic development and the economic recovery in our country. There is sizable pressure on municipalities in this respect, and of course there is direct support to economic development. And now we have to focus on sectors that will be buoyant in the future. We don't think that people working in the oil industry should be set aside, but we think future investment and future development should be focused on renewable energy and on green technologies that will really boost our exports. Mr. Blanchet, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You had roughly 10 minutes to speak. I'll let you finish. Thank you. Sorry, I lost track of time. I apologize. But I was just wrapping up. So I would ask us to think on these topics in a collaborative approach and not reach any quick conclusions. The worst of the crisis may last 4 months, but if it takes weeks for measures to be set up, we're leaving people in a very bad situation at the very worst without assistance. So we need to vote and approve plans for support that our people need. Thank you very much.
Vancouver Kingsway, Mr. Davies.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of my colleagues in the New Democrat Caucus, may I begin by extending our deepest sympathies to the families and friends of the victims of the horrific crime recently committed in Nova Scotia, and to all Nova Scotians who we know have been deeply affected by that senseless tragedy. We stand with you in your time of grief and send our most heartfelt thoughts of healing and support. I think I speak for all Canadians when I say that we are experiencing a phenomenon of unprecedented and truly stunning proportions. 6 months ago, if you would have asked any citizen in any province or territory in the country whether they could conceive of a health crisis of such magnitude that it would be necessary to batten down our borders, isolate our communities, close our schools, shutter our businesses, quarantine our homes, and focus our hospital resources on a single pathogen, no one could have imagined such a scenario. Yet, here we are in the midst of just such a crisis. And the human and economic toll of the COVID-19 pandemic has been as devastating as it was unforeseen. Today, on behalf of the New Democratic Party of Canada, I express our deepest condolences to all Canadians who have lost a loved one to this deadly virus. We extend our heartfelt thoughts to all those living in isolation and vulnerability and send our fervent message that you are neither alone nor forgotten. And we convey our most profound gratitude to all those brave Canadians working on the front lines of this epidemic, and to all those toiling to keep our communities stocked and running, often at risk to their own health and safety. Today, as we mark the National Day of Mourning, we take special note of all those workers who died on the job serving in this time of emergency. You are true heroes, and your sacrifices and gifts will never be forgotten. And although public health measures have forced us apart, Canadians have come together throughout this crisis in a manner that is truly extraordinary. Compassion, generosity, and solidarity have been more contagious than the virus itself. Mr. Speaker, if the COVID-19 crisis has underlined one overarching issue, it is the immeasurable value of our cherished public healthcare system. Indeed, it is impossible to imagine the stress Canadians would feel for their health and those of their loved ones, and the additional economic anxiety they would experience if their access to healthcare depended on their ability to pay. Thankfully, we are spared that awful predicament. 50 years ago, It was the aspiration and dedication of Tommy Douglas and those inspired by him who built our present system that ensures every Canadian can access physician and hospital care anywhere in this country as a matter of right. Universal healthcare has become a hallmark of Canada, an institution cherished from coast to coast to coast, something that binds us together and comprises an achievement of which Canadians are most proud. It is New Democrats' hope today that we will seize this moment in history to recognize this fundamental health, social, and economic accomplishment and take this unprecedented opportunity to build on it. It has been said many times in the last weeks and months that we should not waste a good crisis. Let us heed that advice. Never again should Canadians be vulnerable to a shortage of personal protective equipment for our vital frontline healthcare workers or those who must deal with the public at a time of pandemic. Never again should we be dependent upon the vagaries of other nations, be it China or Donald Trump's America, for our essential medical equipment and supplies. Never again should we leave millions of Canadians at the mercy of precarious employment-based health benefits, where folks are one layoff away from losing access to life-saving medicine. Never again should a child with a rare illness or vulnerable condition go without their medicine because their family can't afford it. Never again should we witness a single senior citizen live or die in long-term care in disgraceful conditions of soil, neglect, or indecency. So let us cultivate a vibrant, made in Canada health industry for our national self-sufficiency and economic advancement. Let us act with haste to create pharmacare, the next phase of Medicare, by adding prescription drugs and devices to our public healthcare system. Let us create national standards for long-term care, respected and enforced, with a federal transfer to the provinces and territories contingent upon meeting high-quality standards, good wages and working conditions, and public delivery. Let us rapidly expand virtual care so every Canadian can get access to quality services no matter where they live, especially those who live in rural or remote areas of our great country. Let us get to work on the myriad of other ways we can improve Canada's healthcare system, from dental care to community delivery to smart investments in illness prevention, like school nutrition programs. Because, Mr. Speaker, as the Minister said, we must remain vigilant. It is entirely possible, perhaps even a certainty, that this virus will come again, either as an echo in the hall and until a vaccine is developed, or in the form of another pandemic in the future. And though I said at the outset of my remarks that this pandemic was unforeseen, that is not entirely accurate. Epidemiologists, researchers, and others have been warning us since SARS 17 years ago that we must be prepared. As parliamentarians, let's respect that advice and dedicate our resources to becoming prepared. Let us learn the lessons from this crisis and use the precious time ahead of us to get ready and invest in and expand our quality public health system that has served us well today, but can and must do better in the future. Because we no longer can say we were not warned. And as the economic shock of COVID-19 so vividly attests, illness and disease are much more costly than health and prevention. A crisis such as confronts us today delivers us the gift of understanding what is truly important in our lives. And we know well there is nothing more important than the health of our loved ones. As parliamentarians, I think we are all united in our belief that our highest calling is the safety and security of those we serve. Let us not fail them in this duty. Medicare was Parliament's legacy of the 20th century. Let's work together to build on that foundation by giving Canadians the best, most accessible, and comprehensive care possible. Let's make that this Parliament's legacy for the 21st century. Canadians deserve it. As always, New Democrats are ready to get to work to help deliver it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Fredericton, Ms. Adwin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I come to you today from the beautiful traditional territory of the Wolastoqiyik. I will start by sharing my condolences for my neighbors in Nova Scotia, and indeed all Canadians. We are in mourning. I wish to send love and peace your way. Life is fragile, and we have all been reminded how much we want to protect it. I'd like to thank the technical teams behind our virtual meeting today and for the optimism and forward thinking of my colleagues to enable this to happen. Obviously, we will experience some growing pains as we all get used to this, but I'm thankful for the opportunity to represent my constituents while practicing the same physical distancing we expect them to adhere to. Thank you to the Minister of Health for her speech today and for keeping us informed throughout this process. I wish to also thank my fellow members for their hard work for Canadians. I know our teams have all been extremely busy helping constituents navigate this new reality as we too face it with our loved ones.
Our calendar of events and gatherings has been disrupted, but we've been creative when it comes to preserving close ties and strong ties with our citizens. To date, my team has organized 3 national webinars and a community meeting, and many more are planned. There are still many people who've been left out during this pandemic, and we're working very hard to make sure that their voices are heard. I have seen more collaboration than ever between my colleagues, and the various adjustments to programs have led to results. However, our work is not over, and we must continue our efforts in order to improve circumstances for everyone.
Express my gratitude to those across this country who have demonstrated such excellent leadership in the face of COVID-19. I'm thinking of Indigenous leadership, community governance and friendship centers, the premiers and elected provincial and territorial representatives, as well as mayors and municipal councillors for making tough decisions early on to keep us safe. And I'm thinking of the community leaders who have been serving Canadians. In my riding, I think of the Chamber of Commerce, keeping its members up to date on accurate information about support for businesses, the teams at the Greener Village, the Community Kitchen, and the Oromocto and Area Food Bank who are doing incredible work. The leadership at the Fredericton Community Foundation that has already exceeded its goal, raising over $200,000 towards immediate relief.
There are so many examples of this in my riding, and I am convinced that all the members in attendance today have also seen similar initiatives in their own ridings.
I am particularly thankful for the provincial leadership in my home province. We are thankful for our current numbers in New Brunswick. Quick thinking on the part of our education minister to shut down schools sent a message to New Brunswickers that this was something to take very seriously. Wise leadership at the Legislative Assembly saw the appointment of an all-party cabinet committee to manage the province's response to COVID-19.
We know that we have not ended this crisis yet. We have to continue to respect a slow but consistent approach when it comes to health and safety. Now is the time to plan a recovery that is fair for all.
Required a rush to get relief programs off the ground to help as quickly as possible. The unintended consequences have left people behind. Exaggerating marginalism for already vulnerable groups of people, particularly women. Our recovery plans will not need to be rushed in this way. We can direct our energy now to addressing the gaps created by CERB and CEBA or the Student Relief Program, which must include international students. We can make these changes while addressing the longer-standing inequities faced by minimum wage and underemployed workers and by those living on meager government assistance programs. We have heard a few phrases about COVID-19 again and again. Some ring truer than others. We are all in this together, Canada. But we're not all in the same boat. Some Canadians are barely floating on a piece of broken furniture. Some are sitting on an inflatable dinghy with a slowly leaking hole. Part of the learning curve of this pandemic experience is in evaluating our systems, and not all of them are going to get a passing grade. There will need to be many phases to the reopening of our communities, and there will need to be many phases of retooling and readapting to our new reality. We cannot go back to the way it was before. Nursing and special care home workers need to be valued and respected, They should not need to have multiple part-time jobs to make ends meet. We need to start compensating labor in an ethical way, starting by increasing the federal minimum wage floor. We need to recognize the value of work traditionally done by women. We are going to need to invest in the public sector. Increasing client services with Service Canada and CRA will be an obvious start. Those who are working in our oil-based resource economy are going to need support to participate in the transition that is already happening. The economy has left these workers behind. We cannot. We need to recognize that our relationship with the planet and our relationship with Indigenous communities goes hand in hand. We need reconciliation, and we need to pair it with a respect for the natural world. We need to build a better, stronger, cleaner Canada that promotes health and fosters well-being. In preparing my words for today, I sat and I thought, what do Canadians want to hear from us? What do we want to hear from each other? Well, we want answers. We want solutions. We want a roadmap to a post-COVID-19 existence that is both free from pandemic and prepared in the event of its reoccurrence. And we want the vision of that world to bring us hope, that we can rectify some of the inequity that has long plagued our communities. Canadians will want to know that we have learned from all of this. I hope we have learned that we need to be proactive with our health. A future with precautions is necessary. Preventative medicine and even personal protective equipment will have to be our priority across sectors. I know we have learned the value of human contact, that's for sure. I consider now the trust of a handshake or the warmth of a hug and how important that is and how much I miss it. We learned of the need for universal financial stability, the need for a livable income for all Canadians.
We have learned what essential work is, and we have been forced to realize that we have been undervaluing and underfunding those jobs. We have learned that we are perfectly able to set aside political partisanship in order to accomplish great things in record time.
We have a choice now to turn the corner, to take these lessons and forge a new path forward, one that truly leaves no one behind, one that doesn't pit some of us against others, one that breeds love, respect, and prosperity. That is the path that I choose. I wish you all good health and the strength required to keep fighting this invisible enemy. Go Team Canada. Merci. Williman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, before continuing, I just want to remind the honourable members,
I'd like to remind members that this is a parliamentary committee and photos are not allowed. I saw some taking photographs, but you must not post them. And I realize that it's an historic day today. However, they can't be posted on social media.
We're all very proud to be here, but I did see a few photos being taken, and I would appreciate it if you all remember that we're not to post photos on the internet of the screen. We will now proceed to presenting petitions for a period of not exceeding 15 minutes.
I would like to remind members that any petition presented during a meeting of the special committee must have already been certified by the clerk of petitions.
To ensure a petition is considered properly presented, the certificate of petition of the petition and each page of the petition for a petition certified in a previous parliament should be emailed to the committee no later than 6 p.m. on the day before the meeting. I thank members for their usual collaboration. The Honourable Member for Nanaimo Ladysmith. Mr. Manley. Okay, we'll go on. There might be some technical problems. I'm sure Mr. Manley will come back to us. We'll move on to the Honourable Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, Mr. Genuis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm pleased to be presenting a petition in support of Bill S-204. The text reads 240 because it was a petition signed during the previous Parliament, but the same bill has been put forward in this Parliament as Bill S-204. Which seeks to address the scourge of forced organ harvesting and trafficking. This can happen in many different contexts, but the particular genesis of this is the targeting of Falun Gong practitioners and others in China through an aggressive policy of organ harvesting, and there's concern that Uyghurs are now being targeted as well. So petitioners hope that members of Parliament will support this bill, that the 43rd Parliament will be the one that actually moves forward with action to address the terrible human rights abuse associated with forced organ harvesting and trafficking. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The honourable member for Winnipeg North, Mr. Lamoureux.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's actually with pleasure again that I get to table another petition regarding a national pharmacare program. My constituents have signed numerous petitions of this nature, and what they're really asking for, Mr. Speaker, is that the Prime Minister, in fact, all parliamentarians, get behind the idea of having a coast-to-coast-to-coast national pharmacare program to work with the provinces, recognizing that we need to work with the provinces in order to make it possible. So it's a great pleasure through a historic moment of virtual parliament to be able to table and bring forward a petition of this nature on behalf of the constituents of Winnipeg North. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Courtenay Alberni.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can you hear me okay?
We hear you fine, Mr. Johns. You turned off, you're muted again. You were doing fine when you first started.
Okay, there
Perfect.
we go. Mr. Speaker, as I get started to table this petition, I also bring my heartfelt condolences on behalf of the people from Courtenay Alberni, and our love and certainly all of our love and kindness to all of our brothers and sisters in Nova Scotia at this very difficult time. Today I'm sitting today to table this petition on behalf of independent harvesters on the West Coast that are enduring an inequitable distribution of risks and benefits, difficulty of access for new entrants, and a lack of availability and transparency regarding the quota license system and socioeconomic data on the West Coast fisheries. So they're drawing the attention of the government, and they're calling on the government that in May 2019, the Standing Committee on the Fisheries and Oceans provided 20 recommendations to the government for changing its current management of commercial fisheries in British Columbia. And after consultations with independent fish harvesters, community organizations, industry, and academics, the report identified a need for transparent fishing license and quota ownership. And it's currently not known where even the benefits of fish resources are flowing. Among its recommendations was a call for a setup of a public online database to track the buyer, sellers, and sale lease prices, as well as an end to the sale of fishing quotas and licenses to non-Canadian interests. Therefore, they're calling on the government to commit to a timeline and a plan that respects and addresses the 20 recommendations laid out in the House of Commons Standing Committee on Fisheries and Oceans entitled West Coast Fisheries, Sharing Risks and Benefits. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now I see Mr. Manley is back, and we'll see if we can connect. Mr. Manley.
Can you hear me? Can you hear
You're
me?
on. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm presenting a petition today about electoral reform, and this is about our unbalanced electoral system that we have in Canada. And the undersigned petitioners are asking for a National Citizens Assembly on electoral reform and require that the Citizens Assembly to complete its work within 12 months and adopt any recommended changes to our electoral system before the next federal election. Thank you.
Now, we still have just over 10 minutes.
We still have just over 10 minutes.
That have a certified petition they would like to present at this time. I would ask they indicate this to the chair by using the raise hand feature, which is found at the bottom of the participants list on the right-hand side of your screen. Alors, si vous avez une pétition...
If you have a certified petition that you would like to bring forward at this time, please indicate the case by using the button at the bottom that says that you would like to be recognized.
We now have Mr. Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My petition was submitted by some constituents on the subject of the prison farm at Joyceville Institution in Kingston. there is a plan for this to become the site of an intensive goat dairy facility for up to 1,500 goats. And the petitioners request that this not be done for a variety of reasons outlined in the petition, including the costs associated with it, the issue of using prison labor to provide export products, in this case, goat milk to China. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Présentation de pétition.
Presenting petitions.
Seeing no further members who want to present a petition, we'll now move on to proceed to questions of ministers. I would like to remind honorable members that no member shall be recognized for more than 5 minutes at a time, and that members may split their time with one or more members by so indicating to the chair. Ministers responding to questions should do so by simply turning on their mic and speaking. The first question, la première question.
The first question
of the opposition, Mr. Scheer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I wanted to ask the Prime Minister a question about the rate at which Health Canada is providing approvals to companies who are looking to offer new testing kits. As provinces start to unveil plans to ease health restrictions, one of the key factors in allowing them to do so will be the ability to ramp up testing efforts. Once again, we see an example of government reacting very, very slowly and can't keep up with entrepreneurs and with the private sector. And as the latest information indicates that up to 50 companies are waiting for Health Canada approvals. So can the Prime Minister explain why Health Canada has to this point been unable to implement a fast track process so that provinces can get the new testing kits that they so desperately need?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for your question. It is really important that we get testing up to speed, that we make sure that we have reliable testing across the country, because that is an essential part of restoring some semblance of normality as we move forward, as we look to reopening. But at the same time, we've seen around the world problems with test kits that have been faulty or unreliable. And one of the huge challenges we might face if tests are unreliable is we could have an undetected resurgence of COVID-19. We are incredibly pleased by how many innovative Canadian companies and individuals have put forward new solutions, and Health Canada is prioritizing and rapidly going through a process of evaluating these tests. But at the same time, we cannot compromise on not just the safety of individual Canadians through this test, but the safety of our entire country. We have approved a number of different tests. We will be approving more, but it needs to be done in a safe way with the real recovery of our country as the core goal that we're facing.
Mr. Scheer.
Mr. Speaker, information has come out that a Canadian company called Blue Dot was able to track incidents of COVID-19 in China as early as December of 2019. Blue Dot has indicated that among their clients are 12 countries, including frontline healthcare providers here in Canada. Can the Prime Minister indicate whether or not the Government of Canada had access to Blue Dot's information back in December?
Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We were advised in early January of the possibility of what became COVID-19 in China. We made sure that we were monitoring intelligence sources, working with our Five Eyes partners on that. As you highlight, a Canadian company was involved in tracking the spread early on. But we are glad to have that company with us now. Our information around what was going on in China came to us through a range of intelligence services, public accounting and reporting, as well as our Five Eyes and other allies around the world. We continue to work with all those allies to understand exactly what's going on around the world and how we can best position ourselves. We are working with a range of technology companies and innovators to ensure that we're actually doing everything we can to monitor and track the spread of COVID-19 in Canada. There's lots more to do, but Canadian innovation will certainly be a part of that as we move forward.
Just to pick up, Mr. Scheer, we have about a minute left, so 30 seconds for a question, 30 seconds for an answer. Mr. Scheer.
So a very quick question then. In that answer, the Prime Minister indicated that they had received information in January from a variety of sources. One of those sources of information was the Canadian military intelligence experts who warned that this disease was going to be more serious than the WHO had originally indicated. So we've asked this question several times before. It's a simple yes or no question. Did the Prime Minister see, did Cabinet, anyone in Cabinet, or did the Prime Minister see the Canadian military intelligence report that was issued in January?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The Public Health Officer of Canada convened a conversation with her provincial counterparts as of January 2nd to address reports of a virus or a particularly bad strain of influenza that was occurring in China. We got regular updates from our intelligence officials. I cannot share specific briefings with you here, obviously, but I can assure you that our intelligence agents and officials were very active in keeping Cabinet and the government apprised of latest developments.
Before continuing, I just want to remind the honourable members to place their questions through the chair. And now we'll continue. L'honorable député.
The honourable member for Saint Jean, Ms. Normandin. Thank you very much, Chair. Can you hear me well? Wonderful. So, the government has amended the Income Tax Act. This allowed us company revenues, rather, to be exonerated from taxes, and they reached an agreement with Canadian government to allow the exchange of tax information through such a small amendment. They allowed
a point of order from. Please state your name so I can see. Okay, the honourable member, Mr. Couric.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Sorry, there's an issue with the translation. It's the same volume as the original audio. It's very difficult to understand.
Okay, what we'll do is we'll pause for a moment. I'll check with the technical team to make sure everything gets adjusted here. One moment, we're taking care of it. Thank you for bringing that up.
Anthony, it's Deb. I just wanted to say we raised this issue yesterday in our practice that the translation is at the same volume, or the person that's coming through is at the same volume as the translation, so it's completely on top. So it's very hard to follow the conversation when both are at the same volume.
They're very much aware of it. It was brought up yesterday and it just slipped back. They're taking care of it right now. But please, if it continues once we think we've got it fixed, please let us know. This is a historic date and we are doing a first. So I appreciate your help and your input. So any point of order that brings up a technical issue, we certainly appreciate on this end. Okay, there is a technical issue. It is that if you are going to speak English, please keep your translation or your interpretation on the French or on the English channel. If
you decide to speak in French, continue to do so, but stay on the French channel.
S'il vous plaît, changez.
If you wanted to do both, please change. But what happens is the language that on the channel that you're on that you're connected to will be the language that you're going to hear.
Stay to the language that you want to be speaking and hearing, and that should solve the problem. Well, we'll try it again. Madame
Ms. Normandin, please continue. If I may, I just want to resume my question quickly. In 2009, the government modified the Income Tax Act, and Article 5907 exempted companies from paying taxes. And with such a simple amendment, they liberalized many tax havens. And what we can do through regulations, well, we can also undo them. So we proposed during the previous parliament a principle that says that when we can do something and we don't do it, it's because we don't want to. And my question is this: how come the government does not want to?
There, okay. Mr. Epp has an issue with the transit. Now, are you on the English channel, Mr. Epp?
Yes, I am.
Okay. One moment. Excuse, Madame Normand.
I apologize, Ms. Normandin.
Okay, Madame Normandin.
Ms. Normandin, a question. Are you on the French channel or the English channel? I have translation off. Okay, that's the problem. Please, when you speak one language, please be on that language channel. I've corrected it. Perfect, thank you. We'll see if that helps. My apologies. No problem. We're learning together. So my question is quite simply, for the government, I mentioned that when we can do something but we decide not to do it, it's simply because we don't want to. My question is, why does the government not want to benefit from revenues that could help our seniors, our farmers, and others? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Unmute. Unmute yourself, please. I saved the translation, but well, since 2015, our government has taken the needs to fight against tax evasion very seriously, and that is why we invested more than $1 billion in the CRA to fight against tax evasion and avoidance to ensure that everyone pays their fair share. This is something we continue to do, and we have worked with the CRA on measures, including abroad, to fight the tax evasion and tax avoidance. Ms. Normandin. Chair, like many of my colleagues, I've received many questions from my constituents during this crisis. Many of them have asked, well, I didn't do a tax return over the past year, but I did earn more than $5,000, which allows me to be eligible for the CERB. And some companies aren't paying their fair share of taxes, and they have access to programs, but some citizens don't. Even though they've paid their fair share, they won't be able to benefit from the CERB because they did not produce a tax return. And when they don't contribute to the safety net, they shouldn't be able to benefit from the social safety net. That's a simple principle. I'd like to know if the government also understands that principle. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We did take unprecedented measures to help workers and people who are jobless to have access to the CERB and wage subsidies. These measures we established to help Canadian workers to keep their jobs, even during this difficult time. There is an audit process that has been implemented for extraordinary circumstances, and I hope that those who need assistance will be able to receive it. At the same time, we're continuing to fight tax evasion. We've made unprecedented investment in fighting tax evasion and tax avoidance, and those who want to game the system, we're going to ensure they'll be investigated, and those who need the assistance should receive it, and those who don't do not receive the assistance.
Honourable Member for Elmwood Transcona, Mr. Blakey.
Hello, thank you very much. You know, Mr. Speaker, when this crisis began, I think there was a pretty clear choice ahead of the government, which was whether they would take a suite of measures to shore up the status quo, providing some income replacement to people who had lost their regular income, or whether they would recognize that there were a whole group of people getting left behind by the status quo, who were also going to face increased difficulty coming through this crisis, and therefore provide a universal income support that covers everybody and makes sure that there were no cracks for people to fall through. There's been a number of iterations of different programs, and we spent a lot of time trying to identify those cracks and negotiate with government to get them to fill them. But one significant or a couple significant groups of people who continue to fall through the cracks and are by no means the only ones are seniors and people with living with disabilities. Their income may not have been cut, but it wasn't great before, and they faced increased costs like additional dispensing fees, grocery delivery fees, in some cases having to pay to have people do their laundry. There's been a number of costs for vulnerable populations that haven't been met with any direct financial assistance by government. So beyond the one-time increase in the GST rebate, what is the government's plan for seniors and for people living with disabilities so that they get direct financial assistance to help them weather the crisis?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Obviously, this is an unprecedented crisis that we needed to move extremely quickly on. But we took a moment and to reflect and to look at how we could best help people.
Mr. Speaker, we can't hear him if you're listening to English.
Okay, we have another point of order. We're having a technical issue. I just want to pause for a second. Ms. Vecchio, the issue is you're not hearing because on the English.
Yes, correct. I'm currently on the English version and I cannot hear the Prime Minister at this time.
Okay, if you don't mind, we'll just push pause for a second and we'll see if we can fix that from this end.
Mr. Speaker, I am up too also on the English and I can hear him and I'm on the English.
I see a lot of head.
Mr. Prime Minister, I've switched my language to English. I was on floor, but perhaps if I speak in English, people can hear me. Ms. Vecchio, can you hear me now?
She can. I saw her give the thumbs up. I'll let you continue.
Thank you. From the beginning, we knew that we were going to have to help millions of Canadians who we were asking to stop working, to stay home because of COVID-19. That's why we moved very quickly with the Canada Emergency Response Benefit that would be an income replacement for people who lost the paychecks. The first and biggest challenge was to make sure that people were counting on a paycheck that would come in to help them pay their rent, to pay groceries, and were relying on that paycheck that suddenly disappeared, would get the support they needed. And that's why we moved quickly on that. We knew that targeted measures were the best way to help people, including the most vulnerable. It was not going to be worthwhile to send checks to people who continue to make salaries, who have paychecks coming in, who don't need the help. We much preferred to focus on those people who need it.
If I may ask, then so what are the targeted?
We move forward on targeted measures for people in replacing those paychecks. We then recognized that students, for example, were expecting to be able to start work in May, in many cases as post-secondary students. So we put forward a program for them just last week. We recognize as well that seniors and people with disabilities and other folks have been facing extra challenges that we are responding to, that we are putting forward support for. We've done a number of things for the most vulnerable seniors already, and we will continue to put forward more measures as well.
So can Canadian seniors expect your government to be announcing direct financial assistance sometime in the very near future?
We are working on getting the support for seniors that they need. There are many seniors who are particularly vulnerable because of COVID-19, not just on a health basis, but because of increased costs, because of challenges around isolation, because of loss of income or portfolio, because of the stock market challenges. We are going to continue to help everyone who needs help as best we can as a government in the days and weeks to come.
I think at this
Mr.
point,
Blakey, we have about a minute left, so 30 seconds for the question, 30 seconds for the answer. And I want to remind the honorable members that the question and the answer should be about the same length of time. That's a rule of thumb that we use in the House during committees. So I just want to remind the people answering as well as the people asking the question. Mr. Blakey, please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, point of order.
Mr. May, please.
If you could remind questioners to direct the questions through you. There seems to be a lot of back and forth.
Yes, that's a good point. I was going to bring it up after before we start the next round, but please place your questions through the chair of the committee and not directly to the person you're speaking.
Mr. Chair, on that point of order as well.
Mr. Genuis.
Yes, with respect to Mr. May's point, it's just not a requirement of committee that members pose their questions through the chair. You've suggested we do it, and that's a legitimate suggestion, but it's not the convention of parliamentary committees, and this is a committee to require members to pose their questions to the chair. Thank you.
This is normally that's done through when you're asking witnesses. This is a little bit different. So in order to keep some form of discipline and some form of decorum, I would prefer that the questions be asked through the chair. Now, Mr. Blakey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I humbly submit that at this point in the crisis, I think seniors and people living with disabilities would be more reassured by hearing a plan from the Prime Minister for how they're going to get financial assistance than a simple echoing of their concerns. When it comes to students, I just wonder, because the benefit proposed for students is so much lower and their needs aren't obviously any different now than anybody else's in terms of food and rent, I'm just wondering if the Prime Minister could give an example of costs that students are exempt from that ordinary Canadians who need to eat and have a roof over their head, because I'm not aware of any.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister in 30 seconds or less, please.
Students in post-secondary education usually plan on working through May, June, July, and August so that they can pay for their tuition, so that they can support themselves through the year. That is a frame that many students across the country face. There are students who get support from parents. There are students who don't need to work, but most of them do. And that is something that is extremely important. And in this situation, we've seen that targeting students with specific support while also creating more summer jobs for them, more opportunities for them to serve their country, is exactly the kind of thing that will give them both the support they need to pay their rent, pay their groceries, but also contribute to their country at a historic time where we need the energy, dynamism, and forward-thinking approach that young people have to get this country through this.
We'll continue now, and I just want to, as a rule of thumb, something that the people answering and the people asking the questions might want to look at. If they're looking at the screen and they're seeing my picture in one of the squares and they see mute come off, that means they're out of time. How's that for a signal? We'll try that out to see if that works. Now we'll move on to the Honourable Member for Elgin, Middlesex, London, Ms. Vecchio.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I'm really going to focus on looking at the shelters. I have been speaking with the Minister for Women and Gender Equality, and we know that funds were being directed through banks to the shelters directly using the Women's Shelters of Canada and the Canada Women's Foundation. Are there lists specifically on what organizations have received this money so far?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bonjour, Anine, and salam alaikum to Muslims observing Ramadan, and many thanks to my colleague for her collaborative efforts. We have worked with provinces and territories to validate the list to ensure that there's not duplication of efforts and that we are working to address the gaps.
Excellent. When will
Ms. Vecchio.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm just going to ask, when will this list be available? We recognize that there are many groups that may not be part of these networks, and so they're falling through the cracks. So in order to get the contingency funding out the door, when will these lists of these organizations who receive the funding be available? And when will people who are not part of those networks expect to see the money?
Minister Monsef. Mr. Speaker, my colleague is right. We are working to ensure that groups that are outside the categories of sexual assault centers and women's shelters receive funding. So far, $50 million has been invested. We are working to secure more. Those lists are working lists, and if my colleague would like, we can ensure that she has access to them. We are being open and transparent about all our measures throughout the COVID crisis, and certainly her efforts and her care on this issue is one that's appreciated.
Ms. Vecchio, your mute is on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And moving on to agriculture, I'm dealing with many, many agricultural producers in our area. And just last Friday, I spoke to people in the grains and oilseeds, hogs, turkeys, beef, and the grains and oilseeds, of course. And many of them shared the same concern, and that was the fact that they are about to plant. But they do not know if there'll be processing available. Many of these people have finished hogs and would like to get them off. But right now there is no processing that's available in many of these areas. Processors are shutting down, and we already had a lack of capacity prior to this pandemic. So how is the government addressing this key issue that's impacting Canada and the entire world food supply if we don't have processing available?
The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Alors, ma collègue réfère à une situation que j'entends de façon régulière aussi.
I'm just going to interrupt you. Ms. Vecchio, can you hear? All right, continue, please. Thank you. So the food processing sector is facing huge challenges right now, as many sectors are, in terms of capacity, in terms of human resources. Many workers are sick, and these businesses obviously care about the safety of their employees. So they're currently implementing measures in order to ensure the safety of their workers. And for that reason, there has been a decrease in their ability to produce, and therefore producers are being affected, especially those beef and hog producers. We're working with them tirelessly to identify the best mechanisms that would help them. There are programs available to them, and we're going to continue to look for the right solutions.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. You're talking about looking at these right solutions, but I'm looking at the timeframes. When you have a hog that has to be finished, or if you're a turkey, if you own turkeys and they're about to be shipped off and then sent back to your farm because they cannot be processed, what are the farmers supposed to be doing? They're looking at having to euthanize some of their livestock, and we know that this is the stuff that's being used to feed our Canadian families and feed people across the world. So what are some of the immediate measures that this government's going to take to make sure that our food security is safe and that we can continue supplying our food from start to finish?
Madame la Ministre.
Minister.
Vous êtes en sourdine.
You are on mute, Minister. Thank you.
Using the mute, we'll get it. So I want to reassure my colleague that first, our food safety in Canada is protected, and we have increased the funding to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency to make sure that we have all the inspectors where they have to be to protect food safety in Canada. And we have also put in place different measures to help our farmers. They have more access to financing through Farm Credit Canada. We have made some changes to the stay of default of the advanced payment programs. And we are also helping the producers in terms of foreign temporary workers. But I understand what she's saying about the livestock timing. And I can assure her that we are working very hard on finding a better solution to support this specific sector. Thank you.
We're going to go to the Honourable for Louis Saint Laurent now, Mr. Deltel. Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to make sure everyone can hear me properly. The interpreter would like to signal that the sound is very low. Chair, is everything okay? Everything's fine, thank you. My question is for the Minister of Finance. At the current time, the Quebec government has announced measures for an economic recovery. I talk to entrepreneurs every day in my riding, and they have a labor issue. This already existed it didn't happen before the crisis, but it was created by after. There are many workers who are saying that with $2,000 a month, they make more money staying home doing nothing than they would risking their lives and going to work. What can you tell Canadians that are saying that it takes more, it's better to receive the money from the government than to go to work? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Chair. This is a very important question, and we know that it's really important to have enough money for people who cannot work right now. That's a very important objective. At the same time, there are people who lack the incentive to work, and that is why we're going to work with the provinces to provide assistance to every province for workers. We're working with the provinces, with the province of Quebec, and we're trying to provide the necessary support for workers. Mr. Deltel. Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the Minister's answer, particularly since it was in French. But if we want to restart the economy, people have to get back to work. They can't stay at home doing nothing. And yesterday, the Minister mentioned Quebec, and the Quebec government has announced very positive measures for agricultural workers. People can go work in the fields, and we know it's important because we can't just shut up fields at 5 o'clock on Friday. But to allow people to go to work in the fields, they're giving people additional money to go to work. Whereas for students, they may be tempted to stay home and receive benefits rather than going to work in the fields. What can you tell Canadians who would think they might earn more money staying home rather than going to work in the field? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Chair. I can assure you that we want to do everything in our power so that students have the necessary work experience. They really want to contribute to their communities and to serve their communities. So the measure we've established, not just in terms of the benefits, but through the creation of 76,000 jobs. Of course, this will help them, and it will give them incentive to work. We don't want to de-incentivize people from working. Mr. Deltel. Thank you very much, Chair. And for the quality of her French, I would like to congratulate the Minister. I'd now like to ask another question to the Minister of Finance because it's about entrepreneurs. We know that there are some entrepreneurs who don't receive salaries and they pay themselves through dividends. We know that the government had some issues with our proposals to help entrepreneurs, but there's a question about them having access to a $40,000 loan. This morning we were saying that some entrepreneurs pay themselves through dividends and they don't have access to benefits. What can the government tell entrepreneurs who pay themselves through dividends but don't have access to the $40,000 contribution that was proposed? Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Chair. I know that this is a situation where every entrepreneur is in a different situation. With the CERB, dividends are included in the revenue. It's important for companies that do pay themselves through dividends. In terms of rent, there's also an approach that helps small companies that need assistance. So there are several measures that will help people who are in different situations. We continue to reflect on our approach for loans. And if we have anything else to say on this, we will provide more information in the coming days.
Thornhill, Mr. Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Thornhill's world-famous Shouldice Hospital, which performed almost 7,000 hernia operations last year, has followed the Ontario government's order to suspend elective surgery and has closed its doors during the COVID lockdown. But employees of this historic institution have become unintended casualties of the emergency CERB funds caught in the ineligibility provisions for hospitals. The Shouldice Hospital is covering staff salaries for now, but can't for long. Might the finance minister correct this unintended consequence of the emergency funding?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I just want to say that we recognize that different institutions are facing different challenges. Different businesses are facing different challenges. Our attempt has been to come up with measures that can most adequately capture the large number of Canadians. We think that our measures are doing that. The Canada Emergency Response Benefit now has more than 7 million people that have taken advantage of that. We've seen a very significant application process for the emergency wage subsidy approach. We do recognize that there are many situations in many organizations that we need to continue to consider. Our approach will be on a continuing basis to make sure we're protecting people, try and find a way to give employers a bridge through this time, and of course, deal with any specific problems that we see that need to be dealt with. We've taken the approach that we will continue to make improvements where we see that they're warranted, and I appreciate the question.
Thank you.
Mr. Kent.
Mr. Speaker, with regard to the government's still imprecise plans related to the reopening of the Canadian economy, how will the expansion of vitally important testing capacity be achieved? And when might Health Canada approve truly effective antibody testing?
The Honourable Minister.
So with respects to vaccine development and therapeutics and countermeasures, we are engaging with different companies to look at made in Canada solutions. We're also leveraging our
Point of order, Mr.
scientists.
Speaker. I can't hear the response.
We have a point of order. I'm sorry, from Mr. Petzer. Is it you can't hear? Actually, I just want to impress upon all the members for the next session. If you notice, I have a headset on. Please order one, especially for people who are answering questions, because it's so much clearer. You notice how the microphone is close to my face? It's much clearer, and it's for everyone. Maybe you haven't got one yet, or maybe it's just not there, but please make sure that you do have it handy so that it'll make it clear. I'll ask the Honourable Minister to continue, and maybe, I'm not sure if speak a little closer to the screen. Very good, thank you.
So, Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure if you can hear me right now, but testing.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker, point of order.
Point of order, Mr. Redekop.
Oh. Yeah, I can't hear anything. It's just silence.
Okay.
I think, Minister Baines, if you can put your settings to English at the bottom of Zoom, and then maybe it'll translate. That's what the issue was before.
Can you hear me now?
Everybody can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Well, again, as I was saying, with respects to vaccine development and therapeutics and countermeasures, we are mobilizing Canadian scientists. We're recognizing that we need to look at ways to make sure that a lot of that development opportunity can take place here in Canada, but also with the concept of open science, where we're engaging with our international peers to look at solutions globally as well. And it's important to note that we're also focusing on building up clinical trial capacity as well, and broad-based biomanufacturing production capabilities within Canada. These measures will enable us to make sure that we are at the forefronts of engaging with other countries on vaccine development, therapeutics, and other countermeasures, and also made in Canada production capabilities in order to assist Canadians as we move forward and eventually, hopefully, find a vaccine.
Mr. Kent.
Thank you, Minister. And as we wait for the development of that vaccine, when does the government expect to achieve adequate supplies of personal protective equipment to support the province's efforts to reopen the economy?
The Honourable Minister.
So there's two components to it, and my colleague, Minister Anand, is working on the purchasing aspect of it. I'm focused on the Made in Canada solution. We provide daily and weekly updates to Canadians about companies that are mobilizing on a regular basis. We had a call to action where over 6,000 companies stepped up and said that they want to help with the mobilization efforts. And we're very proud of the fact that we've got a strong domestic manufacturing capabilities that enable us to do that. If you look at some of the initiatives that we have announced, for instance, on ventilators, we were able to engage companies like Thornhill Medical, CAE, Starfish, Art McDonald's initiative, as well as ventilators for Canadians for over 30,000 ventilators, which should meet the expectations we have in Canada. With respects to face shields, we've engaged companies like Ford, Mitchell Plastics, and Honda that will enable us to produce millions of face shields within Canada. And gowns, this is another incredible success story, and I'll be very brief here, Mr. Speaker. We've not only mobilized the apparel industry like Ken Stanfield's, but we found Canadian raw material and inputs to construction house wrap, which will enable us to build a Made in Canada solution with raw materials also within Canada. So that deals with some of those international supply chain challenges that we've had.
The Honourable Member for Lakeland. I'm sorry, do we have a point of order coming up? Okay, the Honourable Member for Lakeland, Mrs. Stubbs.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. More than a month ago, the Finance Minister said help for the oil and gas sector was coming in, quote, hours or days. Canadian companies have been forced to cut about $9 billion in planned spending since the beginning of March, while active rigs dropped from 214 to 24, and up to 50% of workers employed by drillers have been laid off. Thousands more have lost their jobs. On April 17th, the government announced loans between $15 and $60 million. The Natural Resources Minister said that day the most urgent priority for energy operators is, quote, liquidity, liquidity, liquidity. But last Friday, April 24th, the BDC said details on how companies can apply are, quote, weeks away. On what exact date can energy producers and service companies apply?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this, and thank you everybody for putting this together. We'll be working with the Department of Finance to make sure
point
that
of order, we cannot hear point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, we seem to have a point of order coming up. The sound is giving us a hard time. Now, the Honourable Minister.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
yeah,
we can hear you now. Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. I just wanted to thank the speaker and to thank all the staff for putting this together. This is miraculous. It's marvelous. And to take the honourable member's question, Mr. Speaker, we'll be working with the BDC to make sure that this is rolled out as quickly as possible. She is right in pointing out that when we asked several groups, including the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, what the top priorities were, they all named liquidity. We have set out measures for small to medium-sized businesses, and we hope to hit larger ones soon. Those small to medium-sized initiatives will cover about 85% of the workforce.
Monsieur le Président.
Un moment, we have a point of order. Nous avons un appel au règlement, Monsieur Reyes et ensuite Madame de Bellefeuille.
L'interprète a beaucoup de misère à interpréter parce que le son est pas trop près de la bouche du ministre.
Okay, we're having a problem in that it's. Oh, sorry, c'est la même chose, Monsieur Reyes?
Oui, et puis je pense que là, ça fait plusieurs ministres qui parlent et dans bien des cas, ils n'ont pas de micro et d'écouteurs. Et je pense qu'étant donné la situation, ils devraient être les premiers à avoir le meilleur équipement possible pour qu'on puisse faire notre travail convenablement. Je tiens à le souligner.
C'est exactement un rappel que j'allais faire à la fin de la session, mais oui, merci beaucoup. Alors, Mr. O'Regan, if I can get you to be closer to the microphone, there seems to be a problem with sound. And we'll continue from there. How's that? Okay,
fine.
We'll see if that helps. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll speak louder and be sure to have a headset microphone, Mr. Speaker, for the next session. I would just say that to finish off what I said to the honourable member's question, we'll be working with the Department of Finance and with BDC to make sure that those liquidity measures are rolled out as quickly as possible.
Ms. Stubbs.
Okay, Minister, but the commitment was made more than 34 days ago, and uncertainty about whether or not assistance is coming is exactly what is causing companies to go bankrupt and lay off workers, because they can't actually access liquidity, which I agree with you is the top priority, and it's just not available yet. So by your answer so far, I guess there's no date on which companies can actually apply for the loans. And then I'm assuming from that, then you can't answer on what date money will actually get to businesses. The survival of the oil and gas sector is going to be crucial for Canada's recovery and future growth. And that's not just the reality for one or two provinces, it is for all of Canada. As you know, in 2018, oil and gas provided just over 500,000 jobs and contributed 108 billion to Canada's GDP. That's 6 times higher than Otto and 10 times higher than Arrow. And that was even after losing hundreds of billions of dollars in projects, and hundreds of thousands of Canadians already lost their jobs. So maybe you can answer this for clarity for the companies. The BDC says companies must be, quote, financially viable prior to the current economic environment to qualify. So on what date did the, quote, current economic environment start?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, let me say I am keenly aware of the repercussions of the dual crises on the oil and gas industry, not only the crisis of demand destruction caused by the fact that we didn't fly for this meeting, none of us took planes, and people aren't driving obviously nearly as much. Plus, we have a crisis that was initiated by the crisis war with Saudi Arabia and Russia, and we are dealing with that on an international level. I live in Newfoundland and Labrador, a province that is even more exposed to oil and gas royalty reductions and price instability.
1 second.
And so that we will be working with the Department of Finance to make sure liquidity measures are rolled out as quickly as possible.
Taking under the time.
Chair, I can't hear the chair.
Oops, sorry, that was me. I pushed it off instead. We all make mistakes. We have about a minute left, 30 seconds for the question, 30 seconds for the answer.
Okay, well, this is what I hope in a future session the minister can answer immediately then. What defines the current economic environment? What criteria define financial viability? Because these are the details that need to be known in order for the companies to be able to stay afloat and to survive right now and then to grow into the future and get people back to work. The finance minister had said that oil and gas businesses could access the wage subsidy while they were waiting for this additional support. But I've been told that Canadian energy companies of all sizes based in Canada who employ Canadian workers, contractors, consultants and suppliers and pay Canadian taxes, but generate their revenue from outside of Canada currently don't qualify even for the wage subsidy. That's why so many oil and gas companies can't actually access the supports already announced. So will you commit to work on fixing that problem?
The Honourable Minister, in 15 seconds or less, I'll be lenient.
Most certainly, Mr. Speaker, I'm committed to making sure that the wage subsidy affects those workers most deeply affected by these dual crises. No question. I'll report back later to this House. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Mission Matsky Fraser Canyon, Mr. Viss.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the member for Brampton Centre tweeted and then deleted an announcement of $3 billion for bee farms. Everyone knows that bees are crucial for our ecosystem and our agricultural sector, especially in my riding with a large concentration of Canada's blueberry farms. However, it is inappropriate and certainly not a Team Canada approach for a Liberal MP
point
to
of
have.
Order?
I'll interrupt. We have a point of order.
I'm not here, Mr. Viss.
Ms. Jansen?
Yes, I can't hear Mr. Viss. I'm on the English channel.
Okay, Mr. Viss, are you on an English channel?
I believe I am now, yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, we're good. Yeah, there seems to be, it's a selective problem. It doesn't happen for everyone, but our technical team will be working on it. Mr. Viss, I'll let you continue. Thank you.
However, it is inappropriate and certainly not a Team Canada approach for a Liberal MP to have access to information that has been denied to me and other members of Parliament. Can the Prime Minister please confirm if there is indeed a $3 billion bee farm fund?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we know how the bee sector is important for our agriculture. I can assure you that we are working closely with them, but there's no announcement to make.
Okay,
Mr. Viss, I just want to remind the honourable members that holding up a prop is not something that is allowed. I'll let the honourable member continue. Mr. Viss.
So I guess the member for Brampton Centre was wrong. In BC, it's fire season and flood season, and volunteer firefighters are having to choose between feeding their families and protecting our communities. Like millions of others, many have lost their regular employment and are collecting the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. Will the government make an exception so volunteer firefighters who earn more than $1,000 while on duty will not have their CERB benefit taken away for the month? In my riding, several calls have already gone unanswered because volunteer firefighters were worried about losing their CERB if they took a call.
The Honourable Minister.
I thank the member for the very important question. We did a lot of work with the firefighter associations and individuals who had raised the issue of ensuring that they could, still accept an honorarium and they wouldn't have to choose between working hours and getting the CERB. And when we set the $1,000 threshold, we were under the understanding that that would allow firefighters to continue on with their work fighting fires. So I'll definitely commit to the member to look into that to make sure we do not in any way disincentivize our first responders in their efforts. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the minister for that. It's especially pertinent in the community of Cache Creek in the Fraser Canyon, where we're under a severe flood warning right now. In my riding, there are dozens of organizations that qualified for the Canada Summer Jobs, yet will be likely denied a placement because of limited funding. Of note, the government has only reallocated existing resources for this program. Canada and our students, I believe, would be better served through an enhanced Canada Summer Jobs program versus a direct wage subsidy where and if possible. Can we expand the program and some of the other positive initiatives announced to provide funds to all organizations and additional essential services which can still operate? We're spending $9 billion on students. Surely creating more work experiences is better than a direct check. And as the Minister of Health noted at the very beginning of this session, Canada does have a culture of innovation and courage, and I'd like to see that happen as it relates to students this summer. Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
I thank the member for his question. Canada Summer Jobs is a program that is near and dear to all of our hearts as members of Parliament. We are funding at 100%, 70,000 jobs this summer. I'm very keen to see the uptake now that we'll have a better understanding of what employers need jobs and where those jobs can be redistributed around the country. In addition, we created an extra 76,000 jobs last week or this week. I can't remember dates. I apologize, Mr. Speaker. Everything's a bit of a blur these days. But the message is, of course, we want our students to work. Our students want to work, and we will look very closely at if this program is oversubscribed, potentially investing more in these jobs. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Viss, you have about a minute, so 30-second question, 30-second answer, please.
Yeah, approximately 3 weeks ago on the Daily MP call, I asked ESD officials what steps were being taken to redeploy workers to assist with the benefit rollouts for Canadians who had lost their jobs. Secondly, I asked what steps were being taken to assist workers in the federal public service to connect from home. Officials acknowledged both were taking place, but could not provide any details. Can the minister commit to letting Parliament know what percentage of her workforce is not completing their regular hours and duties because of network and technological challenges? And of the total workforce at ESDC, what percentage of employees or how many employees have been redeployed to assist directly with Canadians suffering from a loss of job? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We have, and we should be very proud of our public servants and how they've done this Herculean effort to get Canadians both the Canada Emergency Response Benefit and the access to services and programs that are so vital for our citizens. Mr. Speaker, I can definitely commit to the member to get him that information, to get everybody who would like it that information, but I can tell you that we worked very hard in the early days of this crisis to ensure that we could redeploy our public servants. So we moved about 1,500 people, for example, from Passport Canada over to process EI applications. We also handed out, I believe, 3,000 laptops so employees could work from home, but I can get him that for those further details, absolutely.
L'honorable député de Joliette.
The honourable member for Joliette, Mr. Sainte-Marie. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Several steps have been taken to support the economy. Now, in terms of assistance to banks and big companies, There's been a suggestion that there be certain criteria. For example, government assistance should not be given or encouraged for companies that are using tax havens. It also should not be provided to businesses that are in tax havens. I'd like to know if the minister agrees with that criteria. The Honourable Minister.
Merci.
Thank you very much for your question. I think that it's very important to take steps that will help companies get through the crisis. At the same time, we know that it's very important to work within our legislation. The minister is being cut off. The sound is too choppy to interpret.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, if you could actually ask the minister to speak in the English channel or the French channel, that would be great. Right now, both his English and the French translation, or the English translation, it's actually overlapping with his French.
Okay, we'll ask the Honourable Minister to switch channels and see if that works. We'll see if we can get that technical issue cleared up for future meetings. But the Honourable Minister, please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I was on the English channel. I think that that's where I should be. Let me just continue in case I should be on the other channel. What I was saying was that we recognize that we need to provide support for businesses through this era. And of course, we expect businesses to follow all appropriate rules. And as we consider financing for large enterprises, we will be looking specifically at their approach to doing business to make sure that we're comfortable that they are not only following rules, but using the funds that potentially can be provided in a way that serves the intended purpose.
Before we go to Monsieur Joliette, I just want to point out that I guess my technical folks here are saying that if you're speaking French on the English channel, that's where the problem comes up. So, and that, I mean, hey, we're all learning together here. Monsieur Joliette, s'il vous plaît, une autre question.
Mr. Joliette, thank you. What I wanted to point out was that the problem isn't the illegal use of tax havens. The problem is the legal use that is allowed for big companies and Canadian banks. This is called tax avoidance. We all know it. And Denmark and other countries have implemented steps. But from what I understand, Canada does not want that, does not want to do that for now. Now, the second criteria that Mr. Girard suggested was the following. If government assistance is a subsidy, then in exchange, the government should allow the government to have access to shares that are equivalent to the assistance that was provided. And that way, taxpayers will also benefit from a return. I would like to know if the Minister of Finance is considering this. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, this is Diane here, Diane Leboutillier, Minister of Revenue. I'd like to take the time here to give a good response to my colleague. His question is a very important one. What I can tell him is that unprecedented amounts, over $1 billion, have been allocated to combat tax avoidance. And over the past several years, we have tightened up the rules, whether it be in terms of disclosure or other measures. We have also worked with the OECD. We have wanted to make sure that we have country-to-country agreements in order to be able to exchange information. It's a priority for our government to continue to work together so that everyone pays their fair share. Thank you. Mr. Sainte-Marie. I'd like to thank the Minister for her answer. But what I would like to point out is that we want a condemnation, actually, of the illegal use of tax havens. So that's tax avoidance. And Canada really is lagging behind other countries. There's a lot more that could be done, and the government is not doing that. My question is for the Minister of Finance. I think that the company should allow for participation in its capital that reflects the amount being given to those companies in subsidies. What does the Minister of Finance think of that? As I was saying to my colleague, we have an expert committee that has been implemented at the CRA in order to ensure that we can take appropriate measures in order to tackle tax avoidance and aggressive use of tax havens. It's a priority for our government. It's important for taxpayers. We are the government that invested the most money in this type of work. We want the agency to have the tools it requires in order to tackle tax evasion and tax avoidance, and we will continue to do whatever we need to do in order to ensure that everyone pays their fair share. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Centre, Mr. Sarai.
I'll be sharing my time with the Member of Parliament for Miramichi Grand Lake. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I want to express my heartfelt condolences to the people of Nova Scotia on behalf of the constituents of Surrey Centre, and we all pray for you during this very difficult time. It's an honor to speak and ask a question in Canada's first virtual parliament in a time that is unprecedented in our history. My riding of Surrey Centre had many constituents traveling abroad when the COVID-19 pandemic began to escalate globally. Specifically, we had many individuals stuck in Peru, India, Pakistan, and the Philippines. My office has dealt with requests from hundreds of concerned constituents trying to get home or trying to help their loved ones get home after the country they were in or traveling to a limited internal movement, closed its borders, and restricted airspace to commercial flights. The federal government has taken an unprecedented action in this time to negotiate access to lockdown countries, to reach Canadians and bring them home. I want to thank the Minister and Parliamentary Secretary of Foreign Affairs, their team and consular staff around the world for undertaking the largest repatriation effort in Canada's history. My team and I are so appreciative of your quick replies to our inquiries and the inquiries of my constituents. You've been working around the clock, and we are so grateful for your efforts. Can the Minister please update the House on how many Canadians have been repatriated over the last few weeks?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm very pleased to report to colleagues and to Parliament that we have repatriated more than 20,000 Canadians so far on more than 182 flights coming from about 81 countries. We have also been able to repatriate about 5,000 people from more than 180 ships, and I'm pleased to report to colleagues and to Parliament that the last passengers have made it to Canada now over the weekend. Mr. Speaker, this has been, like the member from Surrey Centre said, the largest and most complex repatriation effort in our nation's history in peacetime. I want to thank every member. I probably got, Mr. Speaker, an email or a text message or a voice message from about everyone in this House asking about the well-being of their constituents. I am very pleased that this has been a Team Canada effort. I want to thank the consular officials here in Ottawa and around the world. Mr. Speaker, we have answered more than 82,000 calls, 150,000 emails. Our operation is largely complete. I think we're about 80% complete. And we will continue, Mr. Speaker, to assist Canadian travelers abroad, wherever they might be during this crisis.
The Honourable Member for Miramichi Grand Lake.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my riding, fisheries is a very important industry for thousands of workers. The pandemic has hit this region hard. Basically, the whole population depends on this industry. Many processing plants have the workers there depend on this industry for their survival. The interpreter would point out that the sound is very irregular. It's difficult to interpret. Seasonal workers are very concerned about access to EI. The interpreter was unable to interpret. The message was too garbled. The Honourable Minister.
To the question of the Minister from Nova Scotia, I would just like to say thank you to Canadians from coast to coast to coast for their heartfelt condolences and good wishes to us here in the province. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for the question, as well as for him continually reaching out to my office, to myself, to bring forward the concerns he hears from constituents in his riding with regards to our fish and seafood sector. We recognize that how important that sector is to our rural coastal communities, and we're doing everything we can to support it. Right now, we know that they are very extremely challenged because of the loss of export markets. We're looking at a number of different measures that we can put in place to help harvesters as well as processors. This past weekend, we announced a $62.5 million package for processors to allow them to diversify their products to do value added, as well as to increase their freezer capacity. This in turn will help harvesters who will be able to make sure they have somewhere to sell. We also recognize the challenges that some of them were facing with regards to accessing the CERB. We've made that available for seasonal workers, which was extremely important to the sector. And we've also made sure that people who are on Fisher's EI who have now run out are also going to be able to access the CERB. These are all measures we're taking into account, but we're not finished, Mr. Speaker. We know there's still a lot more that needs to be done. We know that harvesters some of them are not able to access some of the programs that we've put forward. We're making sure that we do have those available to them, and we will continue to keep working with them. And I do want to thank the member for his input into these programs. It's been extremely beneficial. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Bellechasse.
The honourable member for Bellechasse, Les Etchemins, Lévis, Mr. Blaney.
Est-ce que vous êtes en sourdine?
Are you muted?
Monsieur Blaney?
Mr. Blaney? I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker. More of a learning curve still ahead. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You're doing an excellent job. Unfortunately, today we've learned that 15 regional media companies in Manitoba and Ontario will be folding next week. We know what an important role local newspapers play. On March 25th, the Minister of Heritage announced a $30 million envelope to support our regional and ethnic media. My question is, when is that money going to reach, for example, the St. Albert Gazette in Alberta or the Voix du Sud in Bellechasse? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the question from my honourable colleague. I'd like to salute everyone in Laurier-Sainte-Marie and all Canadians. We're all going through this crisis together. I'd like to underscore that since that announcement, the education campaign that we launched on COVID-19 has been deployed in over 900 radio stations and newspapers all across Canada in 12 different languages, including Inuktitut. Ads were published in some publications in the members' own riding, Académie Chemin, Saint-Romuald, Lévis, La Voix du Sud, among others. So that campaign is ongoing, and it will continue as long as necessary in order to raise awareness among the public about this serious issue, which is the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Blaney. Thank you. I'd like to thank the Minister for his answer. We're not just talking about a special envelope for the pandemic, but we're talking about all government spending on advertising. That should go to Canadian businesses that pay taxes rather than the web giants who don't pay any taxes. My second question for the Minister is concerning the Calgary Stampede and the Quebec City Summer Festival and the Jazz Etc. Festival here in Lévis. Those are all canceled. The minister announced $500 million to cover some of those losses, but how is that going to support organizations that run festivals who have fixed costs and they have to get through this year even though they will have no income because their events have been canceled this year? The Honourable Minister. Thank you for the question. There's a number of things we've done in the past weeks to support organizations and event organizers, whether they're cultural, social, or artistic events. They're being hit head on by COVID-19. One of the first things we did at my department was to announce that we would honor all the commitments we had made, even if the events didn't ultimately take place. That was our position, that money would still be available to offset some of their losses. And we wanted artists and technicians who would have taken part in those events to be compensated. The money that the Prime Minister and I announced a week and a half ago, the purpose of that funding is to support the other measures like the wage subsidy or the CERB, which this government has announced. We're talking about arts and culture and events. Not everyone has access to those other measures we've taken, so we're working out the details, and those details will be made public as soon as possible. We're going to be fully transparent. Those details should be released in the days to come, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Blaney, you have 30 seconds left. Please make it short. Yes, my question is for the Minister of Public Safety. I'd like to know what's going on at the border. We know that there's a national lockdown. You're not supposed to travel from one part of the country to another or even within a province. How is it that the border is still open when there's a pandemic raging and we know that the border plays a role? The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We have essentially closed the border, and in fact, we've seen a 99% reduction in air travelers arriving in Canada from any international jurisdiction, including the United States, and an equally very significant reduction in the number of people crossing our borders. But it was also terribly important that we maintain essential supply lines and the movement of essential workers back and forth across our border. And so we have imposed very strict restrictions to eliminate all non-essential travel, but we also recognize the importance of the essential movement of trades and goods and essential workers back and forth across that border. We've worked very collaboratively with the United States to ensure that that happens, to keep our economy moving and to serve all Canadians.
Thank you, and we'll now move on to the member for Desnathy-Mississippi Churchill River. Go ahead, Mr. Vidal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My first question through you is for the Minister of Finance. There are many businesses in northern Saskatchewan that operate as limited partnerships. Does NetA Development, Meadow Lake Tribal Council Industrial Investments, Athabasca Basin Development are just three examples. There are many more Indigenous businesses structured this same way across Canada. Unfortunately, these businesses have been left out of the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy Program. Can the Minister confirm that he will change eligibility so that First Nations limited partnerships are included?
The Honourable Minister, go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to acknowledge the question from the member. We recognize that there are some Indigenous businesses that are looking to be included in the wage subsidy, and that their structure has precluded them from being so included thus far. I'd like to confirm that we are looking at this. The goal around this wage subsidy, of course, is to make sure that as many businesses as possible that meet the criteria are included. We recognize that there are some legitimate businesses that have experienced the decline in revenue that are not included. So that's continuing work. Now, the good news is that we've now seen applications for the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy that are in the 40,000 range. So it's a very significant take up So it is going as we expected to be an important program for businesses to help them get through this time. And I will definitely be following up on that question to make sure that the appropriate applicability is there for Indigenous-owned businesses.
Thank you. We'll go back to Mr. Vidal. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Minister, these businesses provide essential funding for services and employment on and off reserves across Canada. I, along with many Indigenous business leaders, have been advocating for a month now on this. I hope this comes soon. I hope this is something that's taken very seriously. Mr. Speaker, my next question is for the Minister of Indigenous Services. Currently in northern Saskatchewan, the communities of La Loche, Clearwater, River Denny Nation, and English River First Nation are experiencing a bad outbreak of COVID-19. These outbreaks in northern and remote places require unique responses due to the lack of health resources and the geographical challenge. Mr. Speaker, through you to Minister Miller, I ask, what action has ISC taken to address this particular outbreak in northern Saskatchewan? And does that action include providing these communities with additional health personnel?
And we'll ask the Honourable Minister to go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank the member for his questions. First and foremost, our hearts go out to the families of the elder Sylvester.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. I can't hear the response.
Okay, we've got a point of order just on the response. I'll maybe just ask Minister Miller to
point of order, Mr. Speaker. I don't know if anyone else is having this problem, but I'm having trouble hearing you. Actually.
Okay. All right. I'm not sure why that would be, but let me just maybe flip over to the English channel and see if that works. Stand by. I don't know if that's any better, but we'll have to go back to Mr. Miller now for Minister Miller, I should say, for his response. We'll try that again. I couldn't see whether he's wearing a headset or that, but I'd ask if he's responding in English to just make sure he's on the English channel. Go ahead, Minister Miller.
Thank you, Chair, and I can confirm that I've moved over from interpretation to the English feed, and I hope that's better for people listening. First and foremost, the hearts go out on behalf of the Government of Canada to Mr. Sylvester and close family relatives of the elder who passed in the long-term stay care home. This is something obviously that is devastating our nation. I would like members to know that working with the Government of Saskatchewan and in the case of Indigenous Services Canada, ensuring first and foremost that the members of Clearwater River Dene Nation have the resources they have, not only in personal protective equipment, but surge capacity for one of these outbreaks. And we are engaging with the community, Clearwater River Dene Nation, in the case of the Government of Canada, to ensure that they do in fact have the equipment necessary to deal with and stamp out any outbreak of COVID-19. And again, working in tight communication with the Government of Saskatchewan, we are ensuring that La Loche and nearby Indigenous communities do in fact have the resources they need.
Okay, we have time just for one short question, perhaps 30 seconds. We'll go to Mr. Vidal for a wrap-up question, 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is to Minister Miller again. Minister, you and your government talk about using science, but data on the rates of infection among Indigenous Canadians remains very unreliable. In order to ensure that Indigenous people are adequately supported and that those supports are scaled correctly, what specific steps is the government taking in order to gather accurate data and make informed decisions?
Minister Miller, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Chair. And this is an exceedingly important question. The data that Indigenous Service carries and has directly deals principally with Indigenous peoples on reserve and the data that is given to us through the territories as they administer the testing. So this is a question that goes across the government in terms of coordinating our response, whether it's with the territories and the provinces, to ensure that the testing, as they identify people, are able to identify what background these people have. Currently, given the urgency of the situation, that ethnocultural testing has not been done. But as a government, we're looking forward to moving forward and getting disaggregated data to ensure that we do have and have a specific response for Indigenous peoples or for people that are, for that matter, more vulnerable to COVID-19, and we can't.
Fortunately, we're out of time there now, so we'll continue on and back to Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Well done. Thank you. We'll move on to the Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill, Ms. Rempel Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My questions are directed to the Minister of Industry. What are the specific quantities of critical PPE, so masks, gowns, face shields, gloves, and hand sanitizer, the Canadian industry is currently producing on a daily basis?
The Honourable Minister.
Can you hear me now?
You're on, you're good.
Can you? Okay, wonderful. So thank you very much for that question. As I highlighted before, with regards to face shields, we are seeing Canadian companies produce them in the millions. With regards to masks, we've engaged Medicom, which will again produce millions and millions of masks for N95 and surgical masks.
How many today, Mr. Chair? How many are being produced today by Canadian
We'll let the Minister
companies?
finish, and then we'll come back to the second question. Mr. Baines.
Thank you very much. So as I was saying, for ventilators, over 30,000 ventilators built by companies like CAE, Starfish, ventilators for Canadians. And for gowns, more than 18 million gowns purchased through 7 significant contracts by Canada Goose, Calco Group, Stanfield, Mustang Survival. And for hand sanitizers, domestic capacity for hand sanitizer is now at 15 million liters per month, which is the equivalent of 6 Olympic-sized swimming pools. All produced by Canadian.
Rempel Gardner.
So on Friday, the Minister of Industry was unwilling to answer a question put to him by a CBC reporter on the number of imported masks from China that were actually defective. And instead, he talked about strong domestic capacity. So I'm interested in him quantifying what exactly that means, because the Canadian Chamber of Commerce and my colleague Brad Redekop and others have stated that domestic PPE supply will be needed in order for workers to be protected and the economy to safely reopen. So how much is Canadian industry producing right now? And I noticed that the minister didn't talk about masks. And I'm just wondering what that delta is between the importation and domestic supply, and if Canadian businesses are going to have to be reliant on potentially defective masks from China to reopen their businesses.
The Honourable Minister.
Again, I would like to thank the member for her very thoughtful question. We are trying to complement our efforts by continuing to purchase at a significant level, but also mobilize domestic industry. We had a call to action. As I've indicated before, 6,000 Canadian companies have stepped up. And each and every single day, we're seeing more and more Canadian capacity built up in a range of areas, from gowns to masks to hand sanitizers to ventilators, all the essential personal protective equipment that the Canadian frontline healthcare workers need in the short term. But as the member raised the point with regards to reopening up the economy and for broader use, we want to make sure we have strong domestic capacity as well. And it's great to see these made in Canada solutions.
Sure.
From the pride that's going to help many Canadians in the future.
Ms.
That wasn't a response. That wasn't a response to my question. I asked how many masks are being produced in Canada versus what the total demand is. So what's the delta in terms of numbers, in terms of what we're being required to import that might be potentially defective, both today and then projected under the terms of provincial reopening efforts?
The Honourable Minister.
So with respects to the demand, that demand is going to continue to increase. That number is going to continue to go up. And so we're leaving no stone unturned. We are completely mobilizing our strong industrial base to build up the domestic capacity. Of course, it's in the millions. So the company that I would like to highlight is Medicom, for example, in Montreal. They are building up local capacity that will provide us with
44 many masks are they?
44 million.
How many masks are they producing today on a daily basis?
Yeah, sorry, if I can just complete my thought. So like I said,
it's my time. So how many masks are they producing on a daily basis?
Actually, I just want to remind the honourable member that the questions come through the chair, and this is why we're trying to avoid it. What we're trying to avoid a back and forth. We still have about 30 seconds. I'll let the honourable minister continue.
So as I've indicated with Medicom, for example, this is a company that we've engaged. It's a Canadian company that's building up Canadian production capability. They are looking to build 40+ million masks on an annual basis.
for the next 10 years. And this is a significant commitment. And this is going to be complemented by other Made in Canada solutions as well.
Chair,
The honourable member for West Nova, Monsieur d'Entremont. I just want to remind the honourable members before I start. I do have the ability to mute individual members. I don't want to go there, so I'll just leave it at that. The honourable member for West Nova, Monsieur d'Entremont.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to take this first opportunity to offer my sincere condolences to the families who have lost loved ones during the Nova Scotia murders. I would also like to thank my colleagues for their work, their words of comfort during this difficult time. J'aimerais remercier tous les parlementaires.
I would like to thank all parliamentarians.
J'aimerais remercier tous les parlementaires pour leurs.
I would like to thank all parliamentarians for their support.
Not sure what the issue is. Let me just check with our technical people. We'll pause the time for a second. Okay, maybe
Maybe
we'll let you continue. We'll see how it works.
Yeah, I had a French line in here, so I just want to make sure I get that through, and then I'll switch to the English translation. J'aimerais remercier tous les parlementaires pour leur.
I want to thank all parliamentarians for their support during this terrible situation.
My first question is to the Minister of Finance. Even though it's fisheries related, in many instances, the lobster industry would, and I suppose many other fisheries, buyers and processors settle in various different ways with fishermen. But simply, they buy the product by weight. Some provide wage and wage benefits, and some use a combination of both. The last two methods do not effectively.
Oui, nous avons un problème, monsieur.
Yes, we have a problem, Mr. Rael. Oh, I apologize. Is there somebody with a point of order?
Monsieur Reyes?
Mr. Reyes?
All right, well, I'll switch to the English one and I'll stay there instead of on floor.
If I could interrupt just for a second, I believe Monsieur Reyes is frozen, so this is one of our technological challenges. That might have been the issue on his end. We'll let you continue and hopefully he can reconnect. Mr. D'Entremont.
There you go. So the last two methods do not effectively represent the true wages of a business. In one case that I am aware, in the T4 summary, box 14, it shows about $2.6 million in total employment, but the actual wages to people working directly for the company are only about $242,000. How can these companies qualify for CEBA and the wage subsidy?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for the very good question. We recognize that within the fishing sector, there are definitely some challenges with regards to how businesses are structured. We're looking at all of those measures that have been put in place and how we can best address the concerns that we're hearing from the industry. We know that there's been some shortfalls with regards to harvesters and processors and being able to access the wage subsidy as well as some of the people who are trying to access the CERB. Those are all measures that we're working on right now to try and make sure that we address these concerns as quickly as we possibly can. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. d'Entremont.
I'll stick with the Minister of Fisheries. So fishers are asking, of course, what about us? Many of their markets are closed or at least purchasing minimum amounts of seafood. Some seasons have been postponed. Blaine Higgs, the Premier of New Brunswick, is now calling for the cancellation of the lobster fishery in New Brunswick. When will the government come up with a rescue plan for the fishing industry that has been severely affected since the beginning of this crisis? Processors were promised $62.5 million, but nothing yet for fishers.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we know that the fish and seafood sector have been extremely impacted since the very start of COVID-19. It was one of the first sectors to feel the impacts because of the decline in the export market. We're making investments for processors to make sure that they can retool their facilities, make sure that they're able to provide the health and safety measures and protocols that have been put in place. Also to make sure that they can build capacity through freezer and storage space. These are all things we heard from processors that were extremely important to them. We also know that harvesters that are being impacted also need supports. We are now looking at sector-specific areas that we can make sure that we address those issues. We have already made sure that seasonal workers are eligible for CERB, as well as making sure that people who have run out of Fisher's EI are also eligible. We will continue to work with our harvesters, work with our industry partners, with organizations right across the the fishing set and seafood sector to make sure that we get those measures in place as quickly as possible. We know that this is a very, very difficult time in this industry, and I am working extremely hard and actively around the clock to try and make sure that we address these concerns as soon as we can. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. D'Entremont.
Beyond the troubled fishery and agriculture sector, West Nova also has a vibrant tourist industry, but most of it revolves around an international ferry that connects us to the state of Maine. Border restrictions will be going on for some time in the future. How does the government see the borders opening up again with our neighbors to the south?
The Honourable Minister.
Yeah, I think it's a very important question, and we're monitoring it very carefully. But I can tell you the circumstances currently in the United States and in Canada do not indicate to us that it's the appropriate time to consider opening those borders. We have achieved a very significant level of success in reducing non-essential travel back and forth across our country, and for ferry traffic, that has meant a 100% reduction. We'll continue to monitor the situation carefully, and when we believe it is safe to do so, then there can be a discussion about easing those restrictions. But at the present time, I'm firmly of the opinion that they need to remain in place to protect the health and safety of Canadians.
Now the Honourable Member for Fredericton, Ms. Atwin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to kind of reiterate some of the questions asked by my colleagues in the block. So it's a very important issue, and I really want clarity around this answer. 11.4 billion. That's the amount that was reported in
order, Mr. Speaker. We cannot hear her.
I'm sorry. Okay, we have a point of order from Mr. Waugh. We can't hear what's going on or what's being said. I'll just look over to our technical people. Hello? Are you, Ms. Atwin? Are you on the English channel?
I am on the off channel, just regular.
If you can go to the English, and we seem to be having some issues with the off channel when it's off campus here. So maybe I'll let you continue with English. And if you do go to French, maybe just, I guess, switch over. And that takes some coordination, but we're working at it on this end. This was one of our concerns when we first started. And it's actually holding out not badly, but we are having a few hiccups, but I'll let you continue. Thank you, Ms. Atwood.
Okay, thank you. You might also hear my son. He doesn't sound very happy in the background. So I'm reiterating a question in kind of a tighter frame that from my colleagues in the block, because this is a very critical issue in Canada, and I want a very clear answer. So I'm directing this to the Minister of Finance through you, Mr. Speaker. 11.4 billion. That is the amount that was reported in 2019 that Canadian corporations avoided paying by using tax havens. The COVID pandemic brings to light the issues that were left in the shadow, things like the chronic underfunding of long-term care homes that led to terrible conditions of its residents and workers, the lack of services for victims of domestic violence, as an example. These are things we need to fund with the public purse that our taxpayers contribute to. So can the Minister of Finance confirm today that no taxpayer dollars will go to help corporations who are avoiding to do their part to strengthen our social fabric?
The Honourable Minister.
Oui, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for her.
I want to thank my colleague for that important question. And fighting against tax fraudsters is something that we take as a priority for our government. With regard to tax evasion abroad, under our leadership, the agency did twice as many audits in 3 years as in 10 years under the Conservatives. And currently, we are conducting many investigations related to evasion abroad. We have made historic investments of approximately $1 billion. We have provided tools to the agency to be able to counter tax avoidance and tax evasion.
Thank you. So another question for me is, I am reassured by the fact that we are putting in place measures to help students, the ones who we will rebuild our future in our country. So, but we are still facing, we're forgetting some behind. International students in Canada contributed an estimated $21.6 billion to Canada's GDP and supported almost 170,000 jobs for Canada's middle class. Can the minister confirm that measures will be put in place in order to support international students who will also play an important role in relaunching our economy?
The Honourable Minister.
I thank the member.
Oui, nous avons...
Oh, c'est moi.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker.
Je m'excuse, nous avons...
I'm sorry, we have a point of order. Mr. Reyes? Yes, Mr. Reyes. From 2:23, I lost all signal, all sound. I tried to indicate my problem to you. I was completely cut off from the call, from this virtual sitting. I've just been reconnected by technical services, and I'd like to congratulate them on the speed of their intervention to help me out. But I'd like to know whether in situations like this, what provision is made so that I can have access to what has been said, to everything I've missed, the questions and answers, because I'm here with 176 other members currently because we're interested in what's going on, and I'd like to have answers from ministers. I'm sure relevant questions were asked by opposition members. That's a good question. What's going to happen, we have to clarify, is that the sitting itself will be available online. So you can go online and see what was said precisely when you were disconnected. That's open not just to members, but to all Canadians who are disconnected. If you want to see what you missed, it's an excellent question.
People.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Epp, you have a point of order. Can you...
Yes, I was hearing both yourself and French translations at equal volume, not being able to understand either.
Okay, very good. That is that was one of the issues that came up when we were first starting off, was the translation was going to be an issue, and it was the overlay like that. So we're still working on it. We got most of it cleared up, but it's something that is coming down. Basically, I was explaining to Mr. Reyes that if you've missed anything along the way, what Canadians can do, including all members of Parliament, is going online and seeing exactly where you were cut out and what you've missed, and actually listen in and hear what was said and how it was said. So it is a feature that I'm sure all MPs and certainly all Canadians across the country will appreciate, and hopefully we'll get this this translation or this interpretation issue cleared up as we progress. So we'll continue.
Merci,
we have another point of order.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Monsieur Reyes, and then we'll come back to you. Monsieur Reyes.
Mr. Reyes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And if you don't mind, one of the problems that I'd like to express was the fact that I lost my internet connection, and I'm in one of the Canadian Parliament's buildings. So I think we should at least be able to make sure that the Wellington building of the federal parliament is connected so that we can do our job so if this type of problem is likely to recur. Duly noted. Ms. Rempel?
Order?
I did. I just wanted to say thank you to all of the House of Commons IT staff who've been working very hard, including Joshua Lind, who helped me with my technical difficulties. I think we should give them a virtual round of applause.
That's not a point of order, but I'm sure it's very much appreciated by all staff at this end. Okay, we'll continue. The honourable member, Ms. Atwin. I believe we have a few minutes left, or we have 2 minutes and 25 seconds left. We'll let you continue with your line of questioning, and we'll get back on track. Ms. Atwin.
Well, can I hear the answer to my question about international students?
I'm sorry. The honourable minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Through you to the member, I can assure you that we're looking at a number of different ways to support international students. We value their contributions they make to our country in a number of different ways. International students, if they meet the criteria, are eligible for the CERB. And we've actually taken steps to relax the requirement or the restriction put on international students in terms of how many hours they can work when classes are in session. This is particularly important to international students who work in the healthcare sector and can now contribute as essential workers to this crisis.
Ms. Atwin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And so my next question is about, the oil and gas industry. We see that the cost of a barrel of oil is at less than $1. We've talked about this transition to move from fossil fuels to potentially to renewable energy, or what's next for Canada. Well, it's time for that plan, and I really would like to know some concrete steps forward of how we're supporting a just transition for workers in the oil and gas industry. How are we moving Canada forward to the future? The time for that transition should have been quite some time ago, but here we are now that the transition, it's been made for us. So what's the plan moving forward for our oil and gas industry in Canada?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we're working with the industry and with workers. And indeed, a transition was occurring because the investment climate has changed demonstrably in the oil and gas industry. Right now, our focus continues to be on the workers themselves and indeed on the companies that will provide those workers with the jobs they will need as we come out of COVID-19. Those are the small, medium-sized enterprises with 85% of the jobs being there. And we're working with labor, particularly, who have pointed out that liquidity for these companies is a top priority at the moment.
Now we'll move on to the Honourable Member for Winnipeg Centre, Ms. Gazan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I was wondering if I could ask a question for the Minister of Women and Gender Equity through you. Mr. Speaker, on April 27th, the Minister for Women and Gender Equity and Rural Economic Development acknowledged that since COVID-19, calls for help to respond to domestic violence have gone up 400% in some places. I also want to point out that the Women's National Housing and Homelessness Network recently placed urgent calls for the government to support barrier-free 24/7 safe spaces for women 2S LGBTQ+ in response to COVID. In light of a clear recognition of a growing crisis of domestic violence, does the government support 24/7 barrier-free spaces for women and 2S LGBTQ+ that often do not fit into traditional shelter systems, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And to my honourable colleague, we have pre-pandemic invested in over 7,000 shelter spaces, and we recognize that more needs to be done, and we are working with our provincial and territorial counterparts to fill the gaps.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Although the minister has acknowledged a massive increase in violence and clear calls to action from the National Housing and Homelessness Network for Women, just last week, their government categorically refused to fund a 24/7 safe space for women, girls, 2S LGBTQ+ in Winnipeg, with the knowledge that we are one of the only urban centers without one. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to know if the government feels their decision is in the best safety interest of women, children, 2S LGBTQ+ that do not fit into regular shelter spaces, especially in places like Winnipeg, where we often experience twice the national average of domestic violence cases for women 2S LGBTQ+.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate my colleague's advocacy, though I reject the premise of her question. There was no categorical denial of any such request. We have put forward over $150 million to support community entities through the Reaching Home initiative. These entities are in communities and make decisions to support organizations on the ground. That's in addition to, Mr. Speaker, the $50 million we've invested.
Mr. Speaker, just a point of order, just in respect of time. I have many more questions. I'd like to ask the question. I have many more questions that I'd like to ask. So just in respect of some of the agreements that we've made in terms of process, I'd like her to wrap up her response so I can continue on with questions. Oh, sorry, Mr. Speaker, you're on mute.
Sorry, we'll let the Honourable Minister finish up. Normally what it is we try to make the answer as long as the question was. So the Honourable Minister could answer in that timeline, and I appreciate wanting an answer to the question. So I'll let the Honourable Member or Minister finish up very quickly and then come back to Ms. Gazan. Please do.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as I was responding to my colleague, we are working to support organizations on the ground. We recognize more work needs to be done. We are working with provincial and territorial colleagues to fill the gaps. And if my colleague would like to continue the conversations offline, as my team and I have been in touch, we are happy to do so.
Ms. Gazan.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, the minister has not only not acknowledged that her government's failure to respond to calls to justice of the National Inquiry, but placing the onus of funding on Reaching Home Initiative, which is geared solely to fund Indigenous peoples, makes the assumption that domestic violence only occurs in Indigenous communities is both racist and misinformed. We need a safe space for women, girls, and members of 2S LGBTQ+ individuals who do not fit into the regular shelter system. And I want to ask, my respected colleague, if she is willing to work with me to fund a 24/7 safe space in Winnipeg, or whether their government will continually to turn a willful blind eye to violence without real action.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, my team have been in touch with my honorable colleague. We have indicated that we are happy to work with her on the challenges faced in her community. Domestic violence, gender-based violence, particularly in times of pandemic, these are issues that were problems before and are heightened now. And Mr. Speaker, as always, we are happy to work with her and others across the country to address the gaps and to address the violence.
L'honorable.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie, Mr. Terrien.
Vous êtes en sourdine.
Your microphone is not on. First of all, I want to say I've put on my tie, as I promised, Mr. Chair. Good day, everyone. Canada has invested a lot of money in companies to help with the pandemic. With regard to the wage subsidy, we're talking about $73 million. We've seen other countries do that around the world, like Denmark. My question is quite simple. Denmark is helping companies. It is saying that if you have money in a tax haven, you are not entitled to get assistance for the companies that's coming from the state. My question is quite simple. Why don't we do as Denmark is doing? If you are a company that has a tax haven, then you don't get any support. The Honourable Minister. Good day, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. And I would respond to the question, the important question asked by my colleague. And I would tell him that we expect that we will get 1 million applications from companies for the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy Program. Of that 1 million applications, there would be 100,000 companies with income of over 5 million per year. Each of the applications coming from the 100,000 companies will be verified manually by auditors. And we will ensure that we take all the measures needed in order to ensure the integrity of our tax system and ensure that everybody does their fair share. What's important also to know, Mr. Chair, is that the wage subsidy that was put in place by our government seeks to protect employees and not companies. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Monsieur Terrien.
Mr. Terrien. I would say that I didn't get an answer, even though the answer was long. Could you please tell us that when a company has money in a tax haven, you say that you have $1 billion. You should be able to identify them. Could you please tell us that if there is a company that has money in a tax haven, that company will not get government assistance? Are you able to tell us this quite simply, Madam Minister, or not? The Honourable Minister, you are on mute, I believe. Please activate your microphone. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will give my colleague a very simple answer so that he can understand, to say that tax avoidance and tax evasion is a priority for our government, and we have invested approximately $1 billion since 2015 as with regard to tax evasion abroad. I would say under our leadership, the agency has done twice as many audits in 3 years as in 10 years under the Conservatives, and currently we have more than 50 criminal investigations that are related to tax evasion abroad. So we have given the agency the tools that it needs to do its work properly, and we will continue to work to that end to preserve the integrity of our tax system. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Terrien. My questions are simple, and I would like a simple answer to them. We're talking about this situation. We want some satisfaction. I would repeat, could the minister tell us if companies have put money in tax havens, will they be deprived of government assistance that comes from taxpayers? That's the simple question, and I would repeat it. Mr. Chair, I would like her to take 10 seconds to answer this question. Thank you. The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tax evasion and tax avoidance are a priority for our government. As I said, we have had historic investments of $1 billion. We have verification or audit agreements with a number of countries. We have voluntary disclosure agreements. We are working with the OECD. We have put in place measures. We are putting further measures in place to ensure that the agency has the tools it needs to counter tax evasion, and it is in this way that we will continue to do our work. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have the time for a very brief question, about 20 seconds each. We are asking to ensure that there is no tax evasion, or are you able to ensure that GST will be taken from foreign companies that are not paying taxes? Is the sales tax in Quebec going to be able to be provided? Should it not be the same, meaning that companies from abroad should have to pay this sales tax? Please, some seriousness. The Honourable Minister. But before we go to the Minister, I would remind the members to please ask their questions through the chair. Madam Minister, 15 seconds or less, please. Yes, Mr. Speaker, tax evasion, fighting tax evasion is a priority for our government.
The Honourable Member for Charleswood, St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley, Mr. Morantz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm just delighted to be on this call. It's been a very interesting conversation. My question is through you for the Minister of Finance, and I'd like to circle back to something my colleague, Mr. Deltal, raised with the Minister earlier in this meeting, and it has to do with the eligibility of dividends as payroll to be eligible for the $40,000 CEBA loan. I thought I heard, my understanding is that they're not currently. I thought I heard the Minister of Finance say, though, Mr. Speaker, that they were. So I'd like just a simple answer. Can business people who pay themselves solely in dividends be eligible, or are they eligible for the CEBA, or are they not? It's a yes or no question, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as I said earlier, the programs we've put in place really need to be looked at in total. For the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, the answer is yes. The dividends that someone would be having paid in over the course of the last year would make them eligible for the Emergency Response Benefit if they were getting them to an income above $5,000. For the Canada Emergency Business Account, the criteria right now is that you have to have $20,000 in payroll, up to $1.5 million of payroll, to be eligible for that $40,000. And for the rent approach that we've come out with, which more details coming out currently, there will be, for anybody who has rent that's payable in a commercial business,
Mr. Speaker, I have a few more questions on this.
They will be eligible.
Mr. Morantz.
Mr. Speaker, sorry, just I want to stick to the CEBA, if we could, through you, Mr. Speaker, to the Minister right now. So I take it that if an employer pays themselves with dividends, the answer to my question is no, that they are not eligible for the CEBA. And I'll leave it to you to correct me if I'm wrong, but that sounds like what you said. Another problem with the CEBA is, and I want to express, I have talked to business people in my riding, Mr. Speaker, and through you to the Minister, who are very, very worried about qualifying for these programs. There are so many holes in these programs, gaping holes, you could drive a truck through them. So another one of them is, for example, the CEBA loan is based on 2019 payroll. Many businesses are newer businesses. They don't have a 2019 payroll or a small 2019 payroll. Many businesses that are family-owned businesses that don't pay themselves a payroll and don't qualify. Why are these businesses being excluded? And on what date will the minister correct this injustice in the program, this unfairness in the program?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think it's always important to talk about what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to make sure businesses have access to capital to get through this period. There's been 452,000 approved loans, representing over $16 billion that have been dispersed under the Canada Emergency Business Account. So clearly, for 452,000 businesses, they've found a way to get into this program. We recognize that we need to constantly be looking at these programs to make sure they're having the desired impact. That is what we're doing with this program, as with other programs, on a continuing basis. So we will continue to do that. Our goal is to work with businesses to make sure we can find a bridge for them. And that is also what the other programs, like the rent program, which will be applicable for so many businesses, are trying to achieve.
Mr. Morenz.
Mr. Speaker, well, it seems completely unfair that a new business doesn't qualify simply because they don't have a 2019 payroll, but I'll leave it to the minister to sort that one out. I want to turn to the hospitality sector for a minute. We had them at the Finance Committee last week. Very, very serious problems in the Finance Committee. When it comes to the wage subsidy, if public health protocols have said that you can't open your business, the wage subsidy isn't going to help you. I'm wondering if, and the minister could answer, if there is going to be an industry-specific assistance program to help the restaurant and hospitality industry, which has been so adversely affected by this crisis.
The Honourable Minister, in 30 seconds or less, please.
Well, I want to thank the member for his question, Mr. Speaker. We recognize that the hospitality industry, that many industries have been extremely impacted through COVID-19. So we are working to make sure that we help across all sectors. The credit approaches have been cross-sector. I mentioned the 452,000 loans for the smallest of businesses. Similarly, we're looking at how we can provide credit for small and medium-sized businesses and larger businesses to get through this time. And that will be across all sectors, knowing that there's many sectors that have been find themselves in extremely difficult positions right now.
Do I have time for one more quick one?
And then, unfortunately, that's all the questions we have for today.
All right, thank you.
And we'll proceed. I just want to thank all of you. And I just want to remind all of you as well that, as you notice, I have a headset on. If you don't have one, please contact your IT ambassador. He or she will have contacted you via email, so you'll probably find them in your personal email. I was going to give out a website or a phone number, but I thought, this is a publicly transmitted meeting, so I didn't want people from all across Canada asking for headsets. But you do have access to those people, so I encourage you all, if you do not have a headset, please, s'il vous plaît, contactez la personne.
If you do not have a headset, please contact your IT ambassador here at the Parliament of Canada, and they will send you a headset with a microphone so that you have good sound.
It's for your own hearing, one thing, but also for the people who are listening, because the microphone picks up and it's closer. So out of courtesy for others, much like wearing a mask for COVID, you're protecting yourself, but you're also thinking of others. So it's something that I want you all to do if you don't have the headset. J'aimerais vous remercier.
I would like to thank everyone.
And the IT staff and all our staff here who were very helpful in getting this going and continuing to make sure that it all worked relatively well. We did have a few hitches, but nobody's perfect, and we're working on perfection, whereas Canadian can be expected, I guess, if we go back to the original quote. So I want to, again, thank everyone and thank our Deputy Speaker, Mr. Stanton, who is here on standby, who is always there and always helpful. So to all of you, I'd like to, again, wish you all a good day, and the committee stands adjourned until tomorrow at noon. Le comité est ajourné jusqu'à...
The committee stands adjourned until tomorrow at noon. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.